Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Hi,
good
Pauline.
Hi, good to be
I
here
guess you
with
have a
everybody.
surprise for us. Ajit told me something I have to
We'll
impose.
see. We'll see about that, Durga. We'll see about that.
I was so surprised. But you didn't tell me anything. How is that?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, we started.
Surprise
seeing-
element, Polly, nobody knows about it.
That's his way with women.
I had to
But
tell
I
Durga
don't
because
get
she's
it
emceeing,
right
but nobody else knows about it.
If it happens, it will be a surprise. Otherwise,
Yes.
no disappointment for anybody.
I think his
Good to be with
ponytail just charms women to saying things that they don't normally tell other people.
Yeah. Durga, would you want to tell the panelists a few things to all of us so we know that there aren't any surprises for us, or would you want Pauline to do that? Yeah.
No.
Oh, this is an absolute
surprise.
surprise, Hari.
This is a good surprise for everyone online.
Yeah, she might want you put you through a stress test by surprising you online.
Absolutely.
See how you come out of that.
Yeah.
You have to be patient and wait for this.
Yes. How are you doing, Ranga? All's well with you?
All good, all good. I should be in Bangalore for a couple of days. I have a
you
board
did.
meeting to attend. All physical board meetings have started.
Uh,
Oh,
So
yes.
early April I'll be there. Then
Okay.
there's one in Coimbatore, but yeah,
let
it's
me
okay.
know. Let me know when you're coming.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I had one yesterday. I have one tomorrow. It's
Wow.
just the board meeting season, no?
Namaskar, Vikram ji. Nice to have you here.
Good evening.
Hi.
Nice to see you,
Ashok ji has
Vikram.
been, yeah.
Hi,
Ashok
Vikram.
ji has-
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi everyone.
Hi.
There is a lot of echo in this.
Vikram, it's I
Yes.
think your mic, because we didn't have an echo till you came on. So you have come on with a lot of echo, kind of.
Right.
Let's check that out.
Or maybe
Once we
if you-
start, we'll mute everybody and then only the speakers who are co-hosts will be able to switch on.
Do you have two mics or two systems, Vikram, which is on?
I think so. That's the reason. He's got a laptop and something else going on.
Possibly a feedback.
That's the reason. He has to mute the laptop, then he will be all right. If he wants to.
Yeah,
have
I think now it's better. Can you
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me?
yeah.
Yes.
No, it's good.
Sorted.
We'll start in a couple of minutes. The Rotary International Director is actually part of another program in Mahabalipuram, which is a live session for another President-elect training program in Mahabs. So there might be a problem with him. If he's not there when we start, we'll just move on. Same is the case with the district governor. Hopefully they will join on time. If not, we will start and move on with the panel and the rest of the program.
We'll make some accommodations if they join in a little later towards the end.
Exactly. I think that's a good, better way of doing it. Right. It's you're almost there at 5.
1 minute
Hi,
more.
Sridhar.
Yeah.
All
we
the
have-
panelists here?
Durga, do we have our friends from the United States joining us, or have they joined? It must be very early for them. 6:30. There she is. Mary is joined already. Good morning, Mary.
Hey, good morning.
Must be
Happy
6:30.
World Water Day, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mary.
The same day to you all. Do you ever sleep, Mary? Should I ask you that question? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Can I just confirm that all our panelists are here?
I think so.
Ranga, Hari, Ashok, Pauline, Vikram.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's all
Yeah,
there.
Shekhar Raghavan, he's also
Yeah,
here.
he's also there. Only he has not turned on his video, but he's there.
Yeah, his video's on.
Oh,
can
his
see.
video is on. Sorry, I
Mhm.
Missing
missed him
one?
somewhere. Yeah. Oh, there he is. Yes, yes. Namaskar, Shekhar ji. How are you?
Namaskar to everyone.
Am I missing one panelist?
No, I don't think so.
We'll ask people to say Ulle Nayya. All are there.
Do a roll call. We all have to say here.
District Governor is joining in a couple of minutes and we will start.
Ranjan Dhingra, right?
Yes, Ranjan is not here. That's right.
Ranjan said 10 minutes.
It's
3
okay.
minutes ago.
I think, Durga, like you said, you should get started. It's
Get
5.
started.
Out of deference to all the people who have joined, you already have a.
Extremely sorry for the slight delay. Give it another minute or two. District Governor is logging in. He just come out of a hospital because of a little issue.
Ajit, there are about 90 plus people. Maybe get
Wonderful.
started and you'll always, you can always acknowledge his presence later.
100.
All right. Can we get started, Ajit?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm first of all extremely excited to invite you all to the culmination of Hydrathon 2.0. As you know, last year we had great participation from children of the 8th, 9th, and 10th standard from the corporation schools. We had over 200 participants and entries. They shared with us their views on water, how we waste it, and how they believed we can save, besides offering solutions on creating awareness. This year, however, Hydrathon 2.0 took it up a notch, and participants were 18 to 30-year-olds who have the ability to make a difference in the execution of solutions, as this is their future that they are investing in. Our audience today is a mix of this young future and experienced solution providers. Today, we have 2 panel sessions, one after the other, with exemplary speakers who understand water, its management, and its future. And without further ado, and wanting to get the panel started, I'd like to invite Ajit Nair, Water Mission Chair, and somebody who's been in the industry of plumbing for over 40 years, gave up all of that to offer his time and commitment for social causes, and he's all about water. And it's my great pleasure to work with him in this water mission. And I'd like Ajit to flag off this evening's program, please. Over to you, Ajit.
Thank you, Durga. Good evening on this warm, sunny day. Thank you for being here with us. I'm going to keep this very short. You're not here to listen to me. We've got a fantastic galaxy of Indian and international speakers who are here with us today. Let me dispense with all the salutations and greetings and not even talk about Water Mission, because there's something important on Water Mission which is coming up very soon. A video speaks more than 1,000 words. Can I please request Gokul to queue up a small little video, which is just about 30 seconds, which puts together everything that we're going to talk about today. Gokul?
Appa, Amma, Acha, Mama, Pati, Appa, Appa, Mama, Appa, Tata, Amma, Ta, Ma, Appa. Please do not waste water. Your children, grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren need it too. Now, before it's too late. Please. 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 Please.
Thank you, Gokul. This was put together by ANITS and Children of Rotarians, an emotive appeal by little kids telling us what we need to do. Galvanizes us into action. I'll just take another moment of your time. If you will kindly join me in a little pledge, a silent pledge, wherever you are. I pledge to, on this day, 22nd of March, World Water Day, I pledge to save water. I pledge to conserve water. I pledge to continuously keep doing this every day of every week of every year. It is our planet. We need to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajit. Has Sridhar joined, Ajit?
Sridhar will be coming.
Okay, so we'll just keep moving on. And Venki isn't here either, right? So
Governor is there.
Ah.
DG is there.
Oh, very good. Welcome. Good evening, DG.
Good evening, ma'am. Sir, we are coming into first close.
No
Please,
problem.
Yeah, good evening.
Glad to have you here. DG, I'd like you to, for all those who are here, District Governor Sridhar, District Governor, the 332 is here.
5 minutes.
I believe he's in a busy spot, but I'd like to invite DG to give the inaugural address and unveil the new Water Mission website. DG, a few minutes of your thoughts, please.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen who are here in the Rotary, good evening to all of you. I'm very happy to be amidst all of you on the World's Water Day celebrations, a day which I think is going to help the future of this world for all of us and our future generations. This is something which is closer to my heart on the water side. We have been abusing our resources on water, and it has been a tough time in every part of the world, either with overflooding water or at the time of shortage of water. This is what, with the understanding that Rotarians on this part of the world have come together in installing a new approach towards the management of the water resources, and to help the communities to have a trouble-free time for water, at least in future from now. Especially from this part of the world, from Chennai in India, we have been undergoing a lot of challenges with respect to the groundwater position. And we are one of the difficult states in India at times to get water. And this is at this juncture, the Water Mission team, led by Rotarian Ajit and ably supported by Rotarian Durga, have been putting up many new programs in order to generate ideas from the younger minds and also to instill the idea of saving water more than spending water judiciously. I have great pleasure in being here today, and I wish the sessions on Hydrothon goes very well, and I wish you all the best. And who are participating here are the Water Mission warriors who will take the message of this mission for water to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DG. If you will just unveil, Gokul, if you can just unveil the website.
I have great pleasure in inaugurating and the website www.watermission.in for the benefit of the communities and the Rotarians and families around us. It's a very massive task the Water Mission team has put in to get this website done. I wish you all the best. I have great pleasure in inaugurating the website for watermission.in. Thank you.
Gokul, the website, please.
Just a minute, sir.
Ajit, okay to go?
Yes, DG.
DG,
Okay.
just 30 seconds while he flashes the website on the screen.
President of WTO, but toilet organization from
Congratulations to the Water Mission team of Rotary District 3232 in bringing up this fantastic website. And it's going to be great help to the communities and to the Rotarians in and around Chennai and of course the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you, DG.
Thank you. All the best to you all. Fantastic website. Really, it's awesome. You have brought in the best possible features into the website, and it's going to be a great time for anyone to sub through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DG. Thank you for your time this evening. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator and our panelists for the first session. None of our panelists today are new to water. In fact, it has been a mission most of their lives in some form or the other. Let me elaborate, and in no particular order. We have with us Vikram Kapoor, who's the Additional Secretary Planning Government of Tamil Nadu, a 1988 officer of the IAS service. During his service, he's worked in various capacities, and more specific to today's session as Member Secretary, Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority, Chairman, Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, Principal Secretary, Industries, Energy, Tourism, Culture Departments, Commissioner, Corporation of Chennai, Managing Director, Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewage Board. He is currently the Chief Secretary, Planning and Development Department, Government of Tamil Nadu. Welcome, Vikram. We have Shekhar Raghavan, a PhD in Physics from the Madras University. As CEO of Rain Center, he has been implementing rainwater harvesting solutions and developed the first of its kind in Tamil Nadu in 2002. He has been part of several high-level committee of the government of Tamil Nadu to promote, propagate, and popularize rainwater harvesting in the entire state. Most notably, the government, on the recommendation of this committee, made rainwater harvesting compulsory in all existing buildings, and this law came into effect in 2002. Congratulations, Shekhar. Ranganathan and Krishnan, Ranga to all of us, is a water ambassador for Grundfos Pumps India. He was the managing director of Grundfos Pumps from its inception for 22 years. He's been the past president of the MMA, past chairman of Tamil Nadu Council of CII, and past chairman of AAA. Specific to today, he has been on national committees of CSR and water, and has also been on the FICCI Water Committee. Currently, is a member of the CII National Committee on Water. PDG Ranjan Dhingra is an engineer and MBA by profession and a managing director of a multinational company, the Laron Group. He has held several coveted RI assignments, including chairman of the RI Presidential Celebration on Water Management. Ranjan is also the president of the Rotary India Water Conservation Trust, assisted several water-related projects in India, implementing more than 300 check dams, benefiting more than 600,000 people in several villages of Rajasthan. Ranjan is also the advisor of Wash Warriors and has introduced a comprehensive program Water to conserve and manage water. We have with us Ashok Natarajan, and he is familiar to everyone on this panel, a Bachelor of Engineering and a former CEO of the Tamil Nadu Water Investment Company. He founded Steady Taps Consulting, OPC Private Limited post-retirement, to provide strategic advisory role in the areas of environment, energy, and development of smart water systems for the emerging water market in India. He has an in-depth understanding of India's water challenges. Last but not least, we have with us Dr. Hariharan Chandra. He's an Indian ecological economist, founding and presiding over urban people-led movements for urban sustainability on water and energy. A fabulous mentor for green enterprise and entrepreneurs, and an enabler of industry directions on sustainability and resilience at a building scale and the city scale. His current preoccupation has been with the pioneering of Citizen Action Initiative, WOW, the World of Water Action Forum, and the multi-city WOW Partner City Network that spans cities across South Asia, Africa, and the Americas to help citizen and bulk water users adopt local solutions for water efficiency. WOW is a citizen-led action for demand-side water management. And last but not least, finally, our moderator, someone I met very, very recently on the World Women's Day, Pauline Laravaux. She is a sustainability director of the Techno India Group and a co-founder of Y East. She has a master's degree in sustainability and social innovation from HEC Paris, and has developed her expertise in strategic consulting, social entrepreneurship, and impact assessment, and through AQWA, which supports social enterprises and NGOs through social impact assessment studies in the water sector. Let me hand it over to Pauline to take forward the first session. Congratulations, and thank you all for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much, Durga. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm very honored myself to be joining all of you today and to be talking to all of the beautiful panelists that we have for this first panel of the day. Happy World Water Day to everybody to start with. A couple of house rules and details. So first, bicultural bias. If that's okay with all of our panelists, I may use your first names. It is not out of disrespect, but as I've been used to. And the second thing is because we need to be conscious of time and everybody's time, and because there's another panel coming in afterwards. If our speakers could put themselves on the gallery mode so that they can make sure that they can see me, and whenever required, when your time is up and you may conclude your particular sentence or your particular discourse, you may see a red card appearing on my screen as an indication that you may finish soon. I hope that's fine for everybody here. The topic that gets us together today to start with is strengthening governance of water resources. I'm really, really excited and looking forward to also learn a lot myself from all of our speakers today. And considering the very diversity, the big diversity of speakers and professional paths that we have around the panel today, I thought that it would be interesting to, throughout the panel discussion, try to highlight the different challenges and roles and solutions of each of the key stakeholders that we have in place as far as water use and water management is concerned. So you'll see it will unveil over time. Oh, one last rule that I forgot to mention is for all of you who are listening to this panel, please feel free to write down your questions in the chat, and I will try to pick them up if I can during the conversation or at the Q&A at the very end. So I will keep that in mind for sure. Just drop your questions in the chat. So as a quick round of warm up, and this is actually a curiosity of mine, I wanted to go around the table and ask you for your personal hook. That is, I would love to request each of you to complete the sentence. It's going to be only one sentence each. Water is so important to me because XYZ, and we'll look forward to hear from you. So I will turn towards Vikram to start with. Water is so important to me because?
Vikram has yet to join. He logged out because he couldn't hear us.
Oh, well, that's an unfortunate pick. No, never mind. I will go back. How about Ranjan? Is Ranjan around?
Yeah.
Hi.
Very important. Thank you so much. Water is elixir of life.
Absolutely. That sounds obvious, but I think it's very important today to remind everybody of that. What about you, Hari?
Well, I hope you won't show me the red card through the session today. It started many years ago. I think it was 1984. I was in some district near Bhopal, and I had this small hamlet. They call it a chani. It's not even a village. There must have been about 40 families in that settlement. It hit me that day, what it means to not have water and to have to fetch it from sometimes, distances that are like 3 hours, 4 hours. And the women did not want water to be brought to their village because they got those 3 hours for themselves without the men hanging around the place. By the way, you're the only woman in this team today on the panel. So that made a big difference to me. And then later in the next 3 years, my thesis, my every study was around this economy, the water economy of our villages. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Hari. And thank you for also reminding us that sometimes we take water for granted if we're privileged enough to have it. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that it's not so obvious for some communities. What about you, Ranganath? Water is so important to you because?
Just 2 words: no water, no life.
No water, no life. Absolutely. That's also what we have seen, I think, on the first page of the website. Beautiful website, by the way. Congratulations, everybody. Where there is water, there is life. Absolutely. And it's funny because I have worked with water and the wash sector in the past, and you realize that if you don't have water, then you don't have so many things, right? You don't have health, you don't have, thriving, you lack focus for education and so on and so forth. So it percolates through very different impacts through water. Absolutely. Thank you. What about you, Shekhar?
Love water and rain the way we love our children.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Shekhar. What did you say?
Love water and rain the way we love our children.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you, Shekhar. What about you, Ashok? If you can hear me, where are you?
Yeah, Pauline, thank you.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
feel water is at an inflection point. It's a paradigm shift between supply development versus demand management. So water is becoming a system-oriented approach now across the world, especially in the large cities. That's my key message.
Thank you so much, Ashok. Has Vikram joined us? Oh yes, I can see you. What about you, Vikram? Why is water so important to you to start with?
To begin with, it sustains life. And after land, I think the most important resource for economic development is water. And though it's a public good, but increasingly now it's being treated as a commodity and therefore needs policies, institutions, and governance frameworks. So that's my take.
Thank you, Vikram. When I was, asked to structure this moderation, I thought it would be interesting to start from, okay, why is it that we gather and why is it so important, which I think we have established and which I think we don't need to spend more time on. And then over the next few dozens of minutes together, the idea is to together highlight the challenges in water and water governance that we are facing and slowly but surely move towards solutions thanks to the expertise of our panelists today. So the next question and the next quick roundtable that I invite all of you to go through with me and with us today is, if we go around the table quickly as we've just done, and start highlighting the challenge in this challenge to solution approach. What is the top one challenge that prevents India from being water positive or water neutral? If I can go to Ranjan, back to you. The top one challenge that comes to your mind that needs to be worked on.
Well, for me, for Rotary India Water Conservation Trust, we have
we're struggling to hear you, Ranjan, I think. I don't know.
Main idea to bring into each one's mind is to conserve and manage water properly, not only for kids. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're kind of back. Yes, it's better now. Please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, please. Go on.
Well, being part of Rotary India Water Conservation Trust, the main challenge we always see is to conserve and manage, along with harness and harvest water properly. That is what we see the major concern.
So challenge number one, conserving water. What about for you, Hari? What challenge would you want to highlight?
I would have thought of 4 priorities, but since you give me one, I quickly reshuffled, and I will say only this. Every bureaucrat has to stop thinking supply side and has to think demand side. The brutality of public expenditure has got to stop. Politician or bureaucrat, I don't know who, causes these things. The other is across states, we cannot have water supply boards. We have to stop calling them water supply boards. We have to call them water management boards. I'll stop there.
Thank you. So we start having this challenge in terms of governance and the tension between supply and demand. Thank you for highlighting this. I'm turning to Ranganath. Top one challenge that you have seen in your experience.
I have one question and a challenge. The first question is, who owns water? And the next one is a very bad mindset of all the stakeholders. I'm not just talking one of all stakeholders. These are the two, one question, one challenge.
It piques my interest, Ranganath. So I'll get back to you to get the answers to these two questions later in the conversation for sure. So the ownership around water is definitely a very key topic. Thank you for that. Shekhar, what about you? What strikes you as a challenge, a top challenge? You're on mute, Shekhar.
Water management should no longer be just a bureaucratic exercise, nor an academic one. It should be a people's movement.
Yeah. So the bureaucracy has kind of taken too much importance, and we need to go back to where it actually belongs and where it actually is important. Absolutely. Agreed. What about you, Ashok?
I think the biggest challenge is institutional reforms. That's the biggest challenge that we have with the rapid urbanization and the growing of all the cities. So it requires prudent measures.
Absolutely. Okay. So a resistance to change as we grow bigger in terms of supply management and supply processes. Absolutely. Agreed. And did I ask Vikram? What about you, Vikram?
So I'll go with what my friend Ashok says. I think institutional reform is key. There are multiplicity of agencies to plan and manage water in an integrated manner. So if we get the institutions right, I think the governance framework will follow. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have peaks and we have a teaser, I want to say, about the challenges that we'll get deeper into now. So I'll go around the table once more, but this time really inviting you to take some time to develop your thoughts on water governance. What I found interesting when I discovered all of your profiles is that, of course, you've worked all of you worked, with a very diverse set of stakeholders. We've talked about governments, we've talked about people, we've talked about bureaucracy. All of these stakeholders have a role to play in the way we use, in the way we conserve or not, in the way we manage water. And the idea of this panel, I thought would be interesting, is to go one by one, around the table and to invite you to highlight the role of one particular stakeholder that has a key role to play in water governance. So of course, I will invite you to talk about one stakeholder each, but if you feel like you need to add some elements about other stakeholders because they are relevant to your personal experience, please feel free to go beyond that. So to come back to you, Ranjan, I mean, you've worked extensively, especially with your involvement in the Rotary India Water Conservation Trust, with the not-for-profit or the philanthropy sector, and their role in water management and water use. What do you think? How would you qualify the role of the not-for-profit sector in moving forward towards water conservation and better water governance overall? Ranjan, you can take your time to answer this one, 3-4 minutes. Over to you. Do we have Ranjan with us?
I don't see him. Maybe he had a bad connection. Maybe he's just dropped off.
Yeah, he's had an unstable network.
Well, I'll get back to him in a minute. I'll move then to Ashok. Again, you have all very diverse experiences, but I've seen in your experience with TWC, especially that you know quite a bit about the corporate sector and the role of the corporate sector through CSR or through their core operations into water management. Can you qualify a bit further their role, the challenges that we face, and how to move forward on this particular sector? Over to you, Ashok.
Yeah. Paula, the most important thing, as I see from the corporate sector, is to bring in especially this water labeling and water efficiency directions into the whole sector. So I feel that, each and everybody, it is not only the duty of the government, but each and every stakeholder or the actors in the sector who are actually consuming water would have to play a role into this, whether it's a question of demand management, whether it's a question of efficiency improvements, or in terms of, education and ability to conserve resources. So my fundamental thing is that, we need to look at, very importantly, the non-revenue water loss programs. This is something in India that we have never done since our independence, because whereas all the other countries, developing and developed countries, have all done it, they at least quantify what is the losses in the water loss in the system in terms of input volume, what are the losses due to technical, and they take prudent actions to arrest them and have a KPI towards achieving it. So I feel all the corporate sector should be a participant in it, whether they do the water audit themselves within the premises, or they adopt a section of the wards or the zones that they live in to really contribute to this loss reduction, especially the non-revenue water loss reduction. I hope I've clarified that, or you need any further elaboration?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you have a key point here mentioning about water efficiency and making water use measurable through KPIs. I think it's very interesting. Do you have any couple of examples of corporations, companies that have managed to do that in a very efficient way?
Yeah, most of the private sector companies have done it. Saint-Gobain's, Grundfos, Telcos, these Tata Steel in India are some of the examples. But if you really see from the urban local bodies, the government setup, there have been a few good examples too. There's been, this ULB, urban local body called Puri City, eastern part of country, Orissa state, 400,000 population. They have been able to drive the water losses from close to about 55% to about 15%. In a matter of 2 years' time. And they have done everything internally. They have built a team, they have built the capacities within, they have invested in the technologies, and And the mindset from going in from just for CapEx, but actually putting the money into OpEx, improving the skill level of the people and able to deliver against KPIs, especially the liters per water supplied daily, how much is your coverage, how much your customer pays, what are your pressure points, what are your weakness in the network, all these things needs to be understood. And I think a few shining examples. Another one is the Jamshedpur utility itself. And then I am saying that even parts of Karnataka, Bangalore has done a lot of quantification. They have been historically doing a program for the last 10 years through Japanese investments. They are doing pretty well in that area. And some of the smaller cities have been shining examples. But the most outstanding one has been Puri. And I think the new things that have happened, I mentor the government of India in these areas, and I find there is an increasing interest by almost all the small and the medium urban local bodies or cities to actually diversify and improve their processes by adopting these measures.
Thank you so much, Ashok. Thank you for these insights. Ranganath, I was thinking of going to you after that, because I know that you've also have more than one. I mean, you've had more than one foot into the corporate world. What was interesting when I got to meet with you and your profile a bit further was your involvement into different forums and alliances and chambers of commerce, corporate wise, and bringing it basing yourself on what Ashok just said, maybe building up on top of this on how is it that the corporations kind of can build action together. If you want to add something on the role and responsibility of corporations from this particular spectrum, what would you like to highlight? I cannot hear you, Ranganath, for some reason.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I just said I'm going to take a few more minutes and add on a few more things. You are just doing what Ashok and Vikram said were the ills of the water industry or the water sector by putting us in silos. You cannot look at water in silos, and that's exactly what we've been doing. I asked a question, who owns water? Nobody knows. And I would like to look at, if you look at from the corporate point of view, I think the most responsible user of water is the corporate industry today, in private industry today, because they have a business case. They are driven to do that because they have the last priority when it comes to water. So there are some who don't, but in most cases they are. But what we need to look at is simply this, is how do we manage the water and who owns what? I've always said that there should be one owner for water. It could be a river basin, it could be the government, it could be a water basin, but it has to be managed locally. And the problem is that we have an issue with every stakeholder. The Indian consumer thinks it is birthright to waste water and get it free. So the elephant in the room is pricing the water. Biggest challenge. Nobody wants to bell the elephant. It's not a cat. So once you see that happening, so there is no business case. And then everybody talks about industry and municipal. The biggest waster of water is agriculture in India. You don't sort the agriculture problem, you don't sort the water problem. And agriculture is a holy cow. And I'm being open about it. So then we have this governance issues. The governance issues, like both what Vikram and Ashok said, there were 17 ministries in the center dealing with water. Can you tell me, is drinking water different from wastewater, is different from agriculture water, is different from industry water? It's the same water we are sharing. So unless until we come, okay, the Jal Shakti ministry was the first step towards that. But unless until you have a water authority which is empowered and not a toothless tiger, we're not going to sort much. And unless until we increase the awareness amongst the public, like the public that's sitting here are converts. The people who are not here, how are we going to convert them? The question is, what is our responsibility as all stakeholders? We can easily say the government has to provide. I mean, if we are going to waste things, there's no way that the government can provide. And it needs a certain few tracks to do this. And I would say, I would agree with Ashok, from what I've seen, worked with industry, a lot of very, very good work is done. And even with government, some of the municipalities, very good work has been done. I won't talk for long because you have to go around, but there are pockets and islands of excellence. We have not bridged them. So we need to do that.
Thank you, Ranganath, for sharing these. I think the point on, going beyond the silos among these governing stakeholders is one point that I really was looking forward to hear from at least one of you. It's of course considering the water and its ownership and the shared responsibility that we have, because it's one and unique unity of water that we all share, is definitely a shared responsibility. And I was seeing a few comments coming in the chat about, you know, now that we're talking about each and every stakeholder, who is to blame the most, which I think probably is not, it's not probably the most constructive approach that we can think of. But just out of curiosity, Ranganat, very quick question. As of course, I fully agree that we need to work together, that the corporates are already on their way, and there are a lot of solutions that they hold. I mean, is there one in this stakeholders map, one strong bottleneck that you have identified that we could, you know, get that conversation going on from in this on this set of stakeholders, the strongest bottleneck? Yeah. Pricing. Okay.
Nobody wants to discuss. We don't even pay the price. The poorer you are, the more money you pay for water, and that's the sad.
Who has to start or push for that conversation? How to break that taboo, Ranganat? What do you think?
I can't say you, Pauline, but the rest of the people. we have to accept that as users of water, that we would pay for this, and that's one thing that and that also needs a certain amount of regulation, and somehow in India, the general public feels that water has to be free, and if you give them say 20 liters of water for a small price, which is very clean and which helps them maintain good health, versus water which is not so clean, which is free, they will opt for the free water, and they don't realize that they go to the doctor and spend money on that. Their health is a problem. The children don't go to school because of health issues. All these are linked, and they're interlinked. You cannot separate them. So there has to be a holistic view on water, and all of us then will say we'll play our parts, but we have to play it together. We got to play music together. It's not a one-man band.
Thank you, Ranganat. So I would like, I think, to follow up on this particular issue with Vikram here on such complex and public issues as water is, and the pricing of water. I would like to understand, Vikram, your point of view on maybe the leadership role that governments can play on this particular matter to maybe accelerate the change that we need to see on this particular sector. If you can qualify that role a bit more, and maybe, as Ranganat invited us to do, highlight the couple of key connections with other stakeholders to make that happen. Vikram, over to you.
Yeah, so I'll quickly just list out what, according to me, are the real challenges that I see as an administrator. See, we are a water deficit state as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, but it's a paradox that we continue to promote water-intensive cropping, particularly paddy and sugarcane. And although the government does kind of provide incentives to go for less water-intensive crops, I think as a society, we are, I don't think collectively all of us have not taken enough steps to, promote less water-intensive crops. And maybe the system of concessions and subsidies is so tailored that it doesn't provide the right incentive. So one is on the policy side, we need to take a call on that. The other is that we have both surface and groundwater resources, which are both used for agriculture and for drinking water. And as a result of this competition, there is some kind of overexploitation that's happening. There are a large number of our blocks which are dark blocks where the water has been overexploited, but nobody seems to be responsible for maintaining the water balance, and each is kind of working in silos. So that's why I said there is need for an overall water management strategy, an authority, as Ranganat mentioned. The other issue I'm concerned of is that a lot of these water bodies, especially our rivers and streams, they are facing a lot of pollution from industry, as well as from urban areas, where untreated sewage or partially treated sewage is let out, and that's causing havoc, playing a havoc on our water bodies. Then there is always this challenge of, this kind of a dance between the role of different agencies. The Water Resources Department feels that its role is to do flood control and provide water for irrigation. Whereas the water utilities like the Water Supply and Drainage Board or the Metro Water think that their role is to provide water for drinking water purposes, and therefore there is always this kind of a tug of war going between the two as to which should take primacy. There is an area which I think one of the speakers did mention, Ranganath, I think he said that water is water, whether it's, for industrial purposes or for domestic and all. And I believe there is a huge untapped potential as far as recycling of water, particularly sewage is concerned. And although Metro Water has been one of the first utilities to provide, the first two projects wherein the recycled sewage is being used for industrial purposes, I think there is a huge potential which we have not exploited. And if we can do a proper usage of recycling of water, we can reduce our dependence on fresh water sources. You mentioned about this issue about demand and pricing. That's a very sensitive issue. And I believe on one side, there are people who think that it's their right to get free water. But I'm also aware that, and Ranganathan is spot on when he says that, it's the poor who end up paying the most. If you look at the coping cost of, not being able to provide good quality water, the coping cost which the poor face is far more than what the others do. So therefore, we need to sensitize everyone, all the stakeholders, particularly consumers, and show that, if appropriate pricing tariffs are there, and not just for drinking water, but even for agriculture use, there would be better demand management and better accountability. And I'm sure that if you provide good service, good quality water supply, especially for drinking water purposes, there would not be such kind of an unwillingness to pay. It's invariably the unwillingness to charge that is the problem, and not the unwillingness to pay. I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Very key point that you highlighted. I will try my best to kind of sum it up at the end of this panel, but really, really important points that you raised in terms of water recycling, water pollution, in terms of recycling water and sewage to reduce our dependence on underground water. These are very key points, and it allows me to do a segue to our last two speakers to finish this round, this round around the table. Shekhar and Hari. Shekhar, first over to you, the king of rainwater harvesting, as I've heard. We've talked about, raising awareness, towards consumers, potentially also the agricultural sector. Is it something that I believe you have done through your professional experience of raising that awareness to the people that need to hear this awareness the most? Can you tell us a bit more about how has it been in your experience to tackle citizens' awareness, on this particular matter? Shekhar, you are on mute, Shekhar.
I may not be able to answer your question, but then let me share my thoughts and experiences.
Please.
I'm never comfortable celebrating World Water Day. Every day should be a World Water Day. We have even gone to the extent of celebrating Mother's Day. So let me start with an unhappy note on a happy day. Forgive me for this. Even after talking about rainwater harvesting for over 2 decades, large majority of us have not understood it correctly. Some think that rainwater harvesting is only an option, and a few others an alternative. They think it is not the individual's responsibility to harvest the rain falling within their respective premises. This would have been true till about 100 years back, when there existed water bodies and open wells created by kings and zamindars, from which citizens met their daily needs. This is no longer true. Most of us do not realize that water flowing in rivers must have come from rain. This is true of water found in lakes and ponds. And also below our soil is groundwater. So rain is the mother, and rivers, lakes, ponds, and groundwater are children. We seem to pay more attention to the children and not to the mother. Almost each one of us have our own groundwater sources, which can be sustained only by individuals harvesting rain. Nobody is going to come to harvest it for us. Earlier, our slogan was making water everybody is concerned. That slogan will have to be modified to say not only making water everybody is concerned, but also rainwater harvesting everybody is concerned. One important aspect of rainwater harvesting is groundwater recharge, which is necessary to sustain the shallow aquifer, which in turn is extracted through open wells. Open wells are a very important and sustainable groundwater source. They are being ignored, neglected, abused, and so on, both by citizens and builders. This is wrong and not acceptable at all. Our groundwater source is available in two discontinuous layers, the shallow and the deep, separated by hard rock. Open wells help us to tap the shallow layer, which is the sustainable source and better in quality than the deep layer. Failure to tap the shallow layer led to floods in 2021. Our own groundwater flooded us, unlike 2005 and 2015, when excess water from Chembrambakam flooded the city. No more lip service to water and rain. They will have to be understood beyond words. Thank you.
Thank you, Shekhar. Thank you for taking us back to the source, to the mother source of, the rain. And I think it kind of reminded me of the water cycle overall, and the fact that we need to understand it and the source of where we can recycle and how we can recycle water through that cycle. Shekhar, one follow-up question very quickly to you, to all of the people who are listening to us today, who may not have ventured into rainwater harvesting. Is there one word or one advice that you would like to share to, the very concrete advice you would like to share to all of them?
Come to the rain center. We'll give you free advice.
Okay. Rain Center, go to Rain Center, everybody. Contact Shekhar and let's make it a reality, because I feel that the trick sometimes is that we sit in this call together and we really believe in the same solutions to be adopted, and then we don't follow up on the solutions and the learnings that we've collected through these wonderful sessions that, for example, we're having today. Hari, to close this roundtable, before I move on to my very last question, can you help me kind of put everything together? I mean, you've done brilliant work with the WOW Forum, for example, raising awareness with towards citizens, also in a more maybe grassroots approach, and with everything that we've heard from the other different speakers. What are your thoughts on the way forward and the main bottlenecks, and how we can kind of unlock this situation? If you want to share your thoughts.
Unlock is the word. I'm really glad that I had the advantage of listening to all of them. I'll put it this way: if you look at 1947, 1950 India, we were at about 4 million liters per capita. We grew our population 4 times. We are now at about 1.5 million liters. To talk of deficits of water is an excuse or an apology for doing supply side. Like someone wrote, I think it was Professor Janakarajan, who's written that there isn't a deficit. There is a way of managing water. And I'm again reiterating that every board has got to be called a water management board. We have to stop thinking supply. Look at Chennai. You get today, after NRW that Ashok Natarajan was speaking about, only about 50 crore liters or 500 million liters net from the metro water, I'm saying. This is against about 180 crore liters. Well, you could argue that it's 150, or I could argue that it's 200 crore liters. But the magnitude is such that 1:3 or 1:4 is the water that we take from groundwater. If you look at the same 50 years or 70 years now, clearly the government has outlived its utility and they had to accept this. As who is this? I think it was our Shekhar Raghavan who said at the center, you asked about how you look at the single stakeholder. At the center of this entire game is the water user, whether it's the bulk water or the individual water user. Or to all of you, and there are some people from Kathmandu also out here today, greetings to you and those from elsewhere beyond India, I'm saying, if I'm an Indian, my standard household at, I would say about 500, at about 30,000 liters of water on one side of usage, that is. You might say that, well, if I live in an apartment, it could be 60% of that. The important thing is that at energy levels, we all consume about 500 units, 2 months is 1,000 units, and every 1,000 units at a thermal plant is 30,000 liters of water, which means about 720,000 liters of water, which is half of, which is 1/2 of your per capita water of the country, that is used for just providing energy to you at your home. We all forget that the water that we use is not the water that we use. It's way more than that, right? So to me, the fact that we carry this burden of 70 years of a certain kind of history, Ashok Natarajan talked about reforming, and I think Vikram heartily seconded that. All that is fine. We need that. They have to talk to each other. We can't have one single authority like Ranga was saying. It will have to necessarily be a situation which I think is impossible in a country like ours, where every department talks to the other, every authority talks to the other. 17 ministries, Ranga says, startling to me. And then we have one called Jal Shakti. So what happens is we have all these wonderful perorations from politicians. So what do we need if I look at the next 10 years? Clearly, if you look at the last 30 years in every other segment, look at the IT sector, look at everything else. Innovation came, solutions came with market-led interventions. And I think after the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, what has significantly changed is that if I am a water user, the tariff, the current cost of water, I'm not talking what the government supplies, the current cost of water that you buy in Chennai or in Bangalore or in any other city is such that any alternative solution for water, whether it's wastewater converted, 1/2 of it you use for certain purposes, or you put in aerators or some very, very basic, simple solutions, your IRR, a lot of you are leaders here, your investment rate of return is fantastic. It's over 20%. Sometimes, especially in let's say STP or in say rainwater, for example, it's as much as 35 to 40%. It's so silly, downright silly, that if I'm living in an apartment or in a home, I can't spend 500 to 800 rupees to get aerators put in, which save me something like 25,000 liters. And you can do the math on these things and you will find what that means. Even if I were to take 100 rupees per 1,000 liters, the economics have transformed in simply the last, say, 5 years, I'd say, maybe from 2015 also. So to you, Pauline, and to the rest of you gentlemen here, I will say, let's stop talking about what the government can do. We have always placed the government at some pedestal which is unwarranted. It has never done anything. Sorry, Mr. Vikram, you're the only government representative here just now. The point is that if citizens decide to make these water utilities irrelevant by going in for these local solutions and say, I don't want your metro water. If we can say, as a matter of fact, more than 1/2 of the residential segments in Chennai don't have metro water. So is the case in a Bangalore. NCR, for instance, you can go to the east of Delhi and you'll find that they have no metro grid or any grid. Now, this whole, a delusion that we live with, that the government can do things, has got to stop. My last point here, one owner says, Ranga, it's not a company that we run. This is the challenge of heterogeneity. There is no homogeneity and commonality of objectives. Ashok Natarajan can walk into a large company, advise them what they need to be doing, and a CEO or some operational head can decide and make a decision on behalf of maybe 20,000 workers in his office, in the company. But you can't do that when you're dealing with communities. Even one small ward of a city like Chennai, two guys, I can't go and convince my neighbor of what we are all talking about today. I think this is what is important. We have to think demand side. We have to think water user. We have to think market-led intervention. And we have to marginalize the role of water utilities. even if that sounds a little revolutionary or offensive. I'm saying that if we begin to think this way as bulk water users, I'm sure we will find ways of solving this, and market equilibrium will make the rest happen.
Thank you.
I'll stop here.
Thank you, Harry. I got so many key insights from what you just said, and especially in terms of decentralization of water distribution system. Right? Going back to local sourcing seems to be the way forward, and starting blaming stakeholders that we believe have the power but probably do not have the power. Most probably do not have the power. So thank you so much, Harry. Being very conscious of time, one last quick round, 2 sentences each on now the solutions, the concrete solutions that, now aware of all of these insights that we've put into the conversation, without a lot of further details, just 2 sentences. One sentence would be your priority solution or next step at the macro level. What is this that this ecosystem of stakeholders need to take to do next? One sentence about this. And what is the individual next step that you will take? So there's one individual next step solution and one macro collective step or solution. Even if on the collective side, you do not have, let's dream a little bit. Let's be ambitious about this sentence. Do not take into account different constraints. What is it that we need to do as a question? So over to maybe Ashok, if you want to start. 2 sentences. Over to you.
My macro view would be to really have the baseline in place. See, Chennai city has expanded from 176 square kilometers to 426 square kilometers in the last few years. The population has increased from 8 million to about 10 million now. Challenges are huge. How are we going to manage it? First of all, we need to know the baseline, our base level, our water balance, our water audit, what it says. Then we can take corrective short-term, mid-term, long-term correction. As far as the micromanagement is concerned, in the way I can contribute, I'm already a mentor with the Government of India. I'm putting my passion and my learning life, which I've had the last 35 years, to give it back to any of the good stakeholders. And that's how I'm planning to work with 1 or 2 of them. And I did help Puri, and I'm going to help somebody, Mr. Vikram Kapoor, also in some way, if there is an opportunity. And I would like to contribute in that. That's the thing I can do as a small
Thank you. Thank you, Ashok, and congratulations for, very thankful for all of the, the knowledge and the efforts that you do towards this particular matter. What about you, Ranganath? One micro and one macro solution that you would like to highlight?
Macro is very simple. You don't sort the agriculture water problem, you don't sort India's problem. 10% increase in efficiency in the agriculture water use or reduction in water use will feed the whole of India, provided you manage it well. That's the macro side. On the micro side, from where I'll take up what Vikram said, we have to recycle and reuse. Please understand, not a drop of water was made or destroyed since the earth was born. And we always talk of specific consumption of water or availability of water. To me, it's a very stupid thing to do because water has not changed. The population has gone from 1 billion to 8 billion. So obviously the specific, availability of water is going to be different. Of course, it's different in different areas. Some are, but overall average is going to be adverse. So rather than worry about it and say, oh, we are getting to 1,000 liters per person per capita or all that, but forget that. Recycle. Reduce the pollution that you have. We are polluting the water as individuals, micro. Every day we waste water, we don't recycle it, we throw stuff into it, we let sewage into clean water, into lakes. Who lets sewage? Is that the government? No. It's us as people. We are letting our sewage in. So let's start with that. And that's what I've been trying to do to advocate that, responsibility begins at home. And Hari spoke about, aerators. For every tap, I'm trying a different aerator to find out how much we can save and what works. So it's something that it's the goalpost keeps changing, but we need to keep behind it, can't let go. And we got to work together. That's the only thing that I say always. It cannot be a single effort from somewhere.
Thank you so much, Ranganat. Absolutely. And one of my I think key conclusions of this particular discussion together is water shortage is kind of an illusion, right? It's about water allocation, management, and pollution, and our ability to recycle, because there's no shrink of water availability. It's about how the state of the water and where we can find it in the end. So this is one of my big takeaways. Thanks to all
Just
of you.
to put it in short, in form, it's available at the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong quality.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Ranganat, for putting this in that way. Absolutely. What about you, Vikram? Your micro and macro next step.
So I'll just quickly say that you just do the math. Let's take Chennai. I think Ashok mentioned that we are having a population of about 10 million right now, and assuming a per capita of say about 150, if we plan to be somewhere near the developed world, so you're talking of 1,500 million liters per day. And it's right now the water that's supplied is about 700 to 800 million liters per day in the best of years. In the drought period, it comes down to 500 to 600. Now, which means you're practically supplying only half the water through the utility. The rest of it is being arranged through private coping practices, which I think Hari also mentioned. But the point is, irrespective of whether Metro Water is able to provide it or private sources provide, the fact is the people of Chennai are easily consuming today, even at 110 liters per capita, it's easily about something like 1,100 million liters per day. Assuming about 80% of that goes out as sewage, that's a standard ballpark practice. You're talking about 850 million liters of sewage being generated, whereas the actual installed capacity of Metro Water is only about 500. So almost about 300 to 350 million liters of raw sewage, untreated sewage is going into our water bodies or into the soil. Now that's a serious problem. And what does it show? It shows up in your stormwater drains being perpetually filled with sewage, whereas they should be dry and ready to accept rainwater. So these are all interconnected. So my take would be, if I were to do something in my current position, I would work with the water department to ensure that first priority should be for full treatment and recycling to the maximum of the sewage that we generate. Second, to design a stormwater drain network in a manner that it does not accept sewage. And third, revamp the entire sewage, the legacy sewage system, sewerage system, which some of which is totally collapsing, the collection system and the treatment system, and ensure that no amount of sewage goes into our water bodies. Now, overall, if you ask me, my macro dream is, as I mentioned in the beginning, to bring all the agencies under one umbrella for better water planning, monitoring, and coordination. And this should be based on hard data, on evidence, based on which any policies should be made. And ultimately, our goal should be to provide 24/7 good quality water to all our citizens, as is done in developed countries, at the same time preventing this unending cycle of floods and droughts. I'll stop at that, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Vikram. And I really like your highlight on, multi-stakeholder strategy planning around water. Maybe we do not have enough frequent spaces and forums to do that. And it could be a good idea to gather in a structured manner on this particular front. I don't think Ranjan has been able to connect again to the call, and I think Shekhar had to leave. So Hari, over to you for the closing words. Your micro and macro solution.
Pauline, you have the luxury of another 25 minutes because the second panel doesn't start until 6:30. Okay.
Okay. Well, I was about to ask. Okay, so fine. So take your time. It is okay.
And we have the rare opportunity of such a wonderful confluence of minds here. Look at Vikram, look at Ashok Nataraj and Panga. Everyone is brilliant out there. And I think Ajit Nair is waving his consent for carrying this on. Okay, let me put it this way. Okay, if you talk at the macro, my wish, aspiration to whatever that I want to fulfill will be this, that every water user, industry, government, buildings, to whatever, the services sector itself, business, if you call it, if you want to call it that, and the consumer, meaning the residential consumer. All of these segments have got to accept either as voluntary compliance or as regulatory, the stick being wielded, where from their current consumption levels, like Ranga said, water is inelastic. I can own a 5-bedder house, or I can live in a 1-room tenement with 6 people. I consume more or less the same quantum of water. Someone wants to take me on how the slum dweller, uses 1/3 of what we use and pays 3 times. I agree with you all. But the point is this, that you do not need to be doing any more than these 4 solutions of aerators, some IoT meters and such, in order to see, especially in bulk water places, bulk water using segments, rainwater harvest, and of course this wastewater that everyone is talking about today. If you took these 4, made it regulatory, or went with a decent approach and appeal like neighbors did in Melbourne, for instance, and they brought down, it's a small city, 4 million is population, 1/3 of what Chennai is. And they managed to get it down over something like, say, 2 years of some decent persuasion with water users. I don't know if that can work, but I'd like to believe that can. This is one. The second is this. This dream of continuous water supply that a New York City or a London can get is not something that India can afford or can ever secure, because we do not have, and we'll never have, 40 years from now, the kind of political system or governance that we need in India. And so what do? Puri, as Ashok Natarajan said, is a brilliant exception to this whole process. And that's because I think, and I don't want to get into the politics of it all, but because of a very stable government which could give the blessings to a bureaucrat, and a competent bureaucrat who had the commitment to drive it was also part of that game there in Puri, which is a very small city, as Ashok said. I step into a Chennai at 12 million or a Bangalore at 12 million population. It's a very different beast. Like you said, Pauline, earlier, we have to have solutions which can stop right there. I produce, I consume, like Alvin Toffler wrote in 1970, we have to prosume. We do not need consumers, we do not need producers, we need prosumers. So this whole business of continuous water supply 24/7 has got to be done in a way that happens within the ward or within, a building. And it's very possible because of the economics today. If this was 2010, I wouldn't have said this, all right? It was still, moving towards those frontiers of pushing the membrane of economic possibility at that point of time. Today, it isn't so. Today, we can clearly see that this 100 rupee benchmark of water, I buy it at the same price in Pune, here or in Chennai. You get a tanker, this is what you pay. Sometimes in summer, they exploit you, it becomes 150 to 200. Who wins? It's like the education sector in this country. Wherever there is a deficit from the government, it's always the private sector which thrives, right? So I'm saying that work these local solutions, leave it to the market and its equilibrium, and you'll have a city that can become water neutral. I don't expect it to become water positive. And this question of deficit is only about understanding how you address the solution. My last point here, tariffs, we can talk about all of these things. 6 months, once there is a slab, but then, that's only 1/3 of your city, if you're talking of Chennai. The rest of it is not actually governed by this tariff challenge. So why are we talking about tariffs? Let's talk about how we sensitize people. So I get to my individual aspiration or whatever. If each one of us, and that's what we are trying at Wow Action Forum too, if each one of us can ensure that 4, 5 people are brought into the water community. Now we have about 100 people, it's 185. But if each of us here decided that we will talk to 4 more people every 2 months and brought them into what I call Frank Slovinich, he's not here, but Mary is here. He says, bring people who are lay people into the water community. Not, like Ranga said, continue to preach to the choir. This is the only thing I will do there. I think Wow Action Forum is sort of succeeding. The water mission at Rotary, I haven't heard much on that. Maybe Ajit wants to speak on it. Since you got the time, you got another 20 minutes. You see, the water mission has got to do such things. Everything that the Rotary is doing must continue to see how it can focus across districts in ways that one person brings 4 people into this. And how? by just sensitizing. Nobody is saying you step out of your house, go and, talk to people. No, try and write. Do it in your own way. There are multiple ways of doing it. We found the WOW Action Forum to be useful in 4 cities today. We are in Chennai, in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Trichy of all places, which is a 1 million population city. And you know how it happened? Simply because 1 or 2 people in that city, whichever the city was, said, hey, I want to be part of this. Now, what can I do to help? We are not expecting people to pay money. We are not expecting people to stir out of their homes. I mean, especially post-COVID and all that. We're saying, just get 4 more people to start thinking about this. And what is this about? What is thinking about? Look at the other equation, the energy equation on your 30,000 liters per month. Even if you want to argue with me, let's make it say 250,000 liters. Take that 250 into 5. You've got 1,250 units of power that you consume, electrical units that you consume for either long hauling it or drawing it from your deep aquifers. Multiply that by 4 because of the distribution and transmission losses and such. You've got a large sum that you spend on energy for just drawing water or using water in your home. Don't forget that.
Thank you, Harry.
Maybe we should ask Vikram on what he said about in my current position, if we come in here, in my current position, if there is anything I can do. And he is today, planning at an important, significant position, I would say, planning and development, and in Chennai and in Tamil Nadu.
I think Vikram has dropped off.
Oh, he's dropped out.
Yeah, I was about to say bye to him.
There are
but
people
yeah.
who want to ask questions. Pauline, there are people who want to ask questions.
Yes.
Yeah, there are quite a few questions.
Durga, can you confirm that we have time now for Q&A and until what time exactly?
I can see a hand raised, a few hands raised.
At best, another 5 to 6 minutes. We have. I'd like to bring Seshasai to just talk about Hydrothon, and I'd like to announce the winners of the competition as well in front of this very august panel. So,
got it.
And we have the next session starting at 6:30. So 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Okay, no problem. So for the next few minutes, so I've tried my best, and I think it's the case for all of the panelists as well, to take, if you have heard a few of the questions that we've had in the chat related to, are we wasting water? Who is to blame for?
Would you like to?
Who is responsible? Huh?
Maybe Ranga wants to take a couple of those questions. I could take some.
No. There are people who have raised their hands.
Actually, raised their hands.
I'm considering that most of the
Sorry, Pauline.
I'm considering that most of these questions in the chat have been tackled. I see Sudeep indeed raising his hand.
He's a very key guy in the Rotary scheme of things.
Over to you.
Good evening. I'm Sudeep Kohli. I'm General Secretary of the Rotary India Water Conservation Trust, a Rotarian. Unfortunately, Ranjan Dhingraji is caught up in something and he's not able to connect with us. So I just wanted to just share with you some thoughts about what we are doing in the Rotary India Water Conservation Trust, which is actually the Rotary India Water Mission also. This was launched in 2000, as way back in 2003, when we had the Presidential Summit on Water in India. The then President of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, was the special chief guest on that occasion. And our past Rotary International Director, past Rotary International Trustee, Sushil Gupta ji, at that time became the president and founded this trust. He passed away last year, some time back. He was the Rotary International President nominee, but due to health reasons couldn't take over. So the trust was launched way back in 2004. And it was working. We've been making water check dam structures. We've been doing aerators all over India. We've done more than 500 plus check dams in Rajasthan and Maharashtra and some areas of Madhya Pradesh. And it was on the 11th of September 2019, the then freshly elected Rotary International President nominee from India, Shekhar Mehta, the 4th Indian to hold this august office. He's presently the Rotary International President, launched this with the government authorities and no less than the Waterman of India, Rajendra Singh ji. And we had people from the central groundwater bodies. We had people from the Jal board.
Sudeep Kohli, you might want to tell them of the kind of budgets that you've spent so far, what you told me some month ago.
Of course, I will just get down to that. That day we decided on the acronym WATER, where water stood for watershed structures, W stood for watershed structures, A was for awareness amongst people, and T was transformation and rejuvenation of water bodies, and E was for the efficient use of water, which is reuse, recycle, and grey water, and reduce consumption. And the R, of course, was for rainwater harvesting. Now, this is the basic program that we picked up with the, where we decided in conjunction with the Minister of Jal Shakti, Shri Gajendra Shekhawat ji, who himself happens to be a Rotarian from Jodhpur. Both our President Shekhar Mehta and Minister had an MOU. They've decided, we've had an MOU with him, and it has been decided that Rotary will be doing 10% of the work that the Ministry of Jal Shakti will be doing all over the country. So if India is, government of India is making 100,000 check dams, we have pledged that we will do 10,000 check dams all over the country. And if they do more, we'll be pitching in. We'll be doing this with funds generated from,
Mr. Kohli, I have only one piece of advice. I have seen check dams being built without any regard for where the water stays and where the water flows, because it's become a program of just building because some politician wants to build a check dam. And we found that everything that was built in Maharashtra was a waste. So if you're going to build anything, please do a GIS study, do a mapping of where the waters, what is the rain, where is it flowing, where is the underground water, and perhaps you will get a much better. I would rather, I'm sorry, I'm being a little preachy. It's not my idea, but if you can measure the impact of what you did on the people, it would be better than having numbers.
I will answer your question. We are doing this in a very professional way. The PhD Rural Development Foundation is our executing partner for this. They are, first we do a groundwater.
Sorry to interrupt, Sudeep ji, could you please wrap it up quickly?
Yeah, please.
Questions before we conclude this panel, so another 30 seconds, please.
Yeah. So the particular special effects, whatever is needed, the surveys are done, impact studies are there. I will be sharing it with all of you. We have a proper study made out. Wherever the check dam is being done, it's being done in the conjunction with the Deputy Magistrate of the district. Government of India has notified 781 revenue districts of India, where the nodal officer is the DM, and we are working in conjunction with them. So we are doing only work where it is needed. That is why the Government of India comes in. Just making
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My only point is the Government of India does not know where it is needed.
I appreciate that. They say water is a state subject, so that's why the ministry has taken.
You should do on distribution reform, sir. Why don't you take up distribution reform?
Thank you.
Why don't you do water distribution?
We are of course doing the har ghar nal and har ghar jal.
What I will do is, I will see if I can get you a meeting with Ranga and Ashok one of these days.
Please,
offline. We will make that happen.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm very sorry we have to close now to leave way for the second panel. I love the fact that we finished on very concrete measures and inspiring organizations that are doing things on the ground. So to all of you who are listening today, please reach out. I will do that myself as well and follow up on the discussions that we've had today. Durga and Ajit, over to you for the next.
Durga, let me say a big hi to Kent Glade out there from Swampy, Gigi. Good morning to both of you, and to Mansi and a few others. Over to you now, Durga.
Thank you very much, Pauline.
You.
It was a fabulously moderated panel session. I've been engaged every minute of conversation. Thank you to all of the panelists who made it so exciting and interesting. It wasn't preachy, it wasn't telling us things that we could, hear, but we don't know what next. And, it kind of invoked in us a little bit of passion about what each of us can do to contribute as citizens. So I thank each one of you. I'd like to just ask you all to stay on for a few minutes. I'm asking Seshasai, the chairman of the Road Tract, who's part of the committee that held the Hydrothon program and that culminated in this panel session, to say a few words about the Hydrothon event itself. And we'll take a few minutes just to announce the winners of the competition before we move on to the next panel.
I can just interrupt for a quick second. After all this intensity of discussion, we do need a little melody out here. And this is the surprise package where Pauline, this lovely French lady, is going to sing a Hindi song to us right now for a little musical interlude.
Ajit, you did not do that.
And then we'll go to Sai.
I thought we were running too late. Okay, so I just a couple of notes just for the, for the sake of celebration.
Yes.
For everybody's reference, I've started singing a couple of Bangla and Hindi songs to try and get more acquainted with the local culture and so on and so forth. Couple of Hindi songs I've tried to do in the past, not a lot. So be nice to me. Okay. मैं कोई ऐसा गीत गाऊं कि आरज़ू जगाऊं अगर तुम कहो मैं कोई ऐसा गीत गाऊं कि आरज़ू जगाऊं अगर तुम कहो तुमको बुलाओ ये पल के बिछाओ कदम तुम जहाँ जहाँ रखो ज़मीं को आसना बनाओ सितारों से सजाओ अगर तुम
Oh, very good.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's fantastic. That's incredible. That's what a wonderful voice you have, Pauline. You have to keep singing some more. Looks like I have to come to Calcutta and visit you soon again.
Come back.
Yes. Sai, over to you, please. Hydrothon.
Sure. Okay, these three people are really responsible for all the activities today. That is Harish, Gokul, and we have the president of the SDMB Vaishnav College, Kamali. So give them a good hand for all the efforts they've taken. And
Harish and Gokul, thank you for all that you've done.
Yeah, we also have Delhi Raja, we have Tamil, who are presidents from other different colleges. So, can you put a thumbs up for them, please? Thank you for that. Okay, so me, I had the largest mineral water plant in Asia for about 3 years. I was the bottler for Kinley, and after that, I took a sabbatical in 2012 and become an organic farmer. So I have both sides, like Ranganathan sir had said that the agriculture part also I know, in the sense for 1 kilo of rice we kind of use almost 2,500 liters of water. So this is one thing which I kind of bring it to the children, and I bring a lot of school children to my farm and give them a one-day farming experience and try to tell them that water is very important and how drip irrigation from Israel has come to India and a lot of water is being saved. But then again, we have issues on the rice and wheat and all that. So you see, bald-headed fellows like me will not have innovations. The youngsters will actually get a lot of new ideas. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Close to about 180 plus road tractors were there, and some of them are watching live on the YouTube. So this is a wonderful opportunity for all of them to create and curate new ideas. And I would like to really congratulate Durga and Ajit Nair for bringing this hydrothon. And we also would like to especially thank Anuradha Ganeshan, who had funded the whole project. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Sai. So just want to take a few minutes to say thank you again to the Ganeshan Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. Dr. Adil, the CEO, is here with us today. And Anuradha Ganeshan, who so magnanimously supported the entire hydrothon competition and the program. I'd like to take a few minutes just to announce the winners of the program. And interestingly, the topics that you all spoke about sewage water being mixed up with the clean water, talked about the management of water, and these are some of the things that were presented to many of the students, and they actually came up with solutions. And the winners, as luck would have it, have offered solutions in these specific areas. So the first place goes to Kashish Fatima, Harshad Parvez, Muhammad Afzal Alam. And they're from AVIT, the Vinayaka Mission AVMRF Foundation. And their project was about water sensors, using water sensors and microbots to detect pipe flaws, to avoid the mixing of sewage water with clean water, especially in the North Chennai area. And this is one of the problems, spoken about by Vikram. And here are these students out with an answer and a path to finding solutions. The second place goes to Priyadarshini, Rubashri, and Alyona Kishina, again from AVIT, and their solution is a very simple app that ensures that every citizen who doesn't have access to the metro sewage system connects and calls these tanker drivers to come and clear their sewage tank once a month or twice a month, are now encouraged to use the app to book these lorry services. Lorry services, once they take the sewage, do not follow protocol and go to the metro station to sanitize the water before they release it. They go wait till it becomes dark and go to the nearest water body and dump the sewage there, which is what is contaminating all our water bodies, which is what Vikram said. And this app enables the citizens to become more conscientious, go through the app, get hold of the lorry drivers through the app. And the lorry drivers only get paid after they get a certificate from the metro sewage a system that says that this lorry has released the water after cleaning the sewage, and ensuring that this doesn't get thrown into our water body system. And so that's our second place winner. The final place is to Shreya Varshini from Etharaj College. And she's presented a solution on 5 water saving hacks, again, need of the hour. How do we save water to mitigate and manage water better? I'd like to congratulate all the winners. Thank you again to Anuradha and to GIEC for sponsoring the Hydrathon competition and for the awards for these winners. Thank you very much for this first panel, to all the panelists, to Pauline for moderating, Sai, Harish and team, all the road tractors, and to Ajit for making this session a grand success. Please do stay on. The next session is going to start just in 4 minutes from now. Okay, so I'll move on to the next session. We have Mary Eggert here, who's going to moderate the second session. I'm going to introduce Ajit Nair, Chairman of Water Mission, to talk a little bit about the Water Mission, and then he will continue to introduce Mary, who will then go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel before we start our second session. Over to you, Ajit.
Thank you, Durga. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Gigi. Do I see Mansi online?
She had a back-to-back meeting, so she should be joining us at the top of the hour, at the bottom of your hour.
Thank you for that. We really had a fantastic panel discussion. So many thoughts, so much of deliberation. There's been so much of an information flow. And then the little song was a bit of relief at the end of the intense session. The second panel, which is going to start now, reminds me of a little story. Zubaydah and Suleika, 2 small girls, all of 9 and 10 years old, were neighbors in a slum apartment, and they have not seen the inside of a classroom. Why? Because when they wake up, they've got to walk 5 kilometers to a nearby lake. 1 pot of water is all these small little fragile kids can carry. They walk 5 kilometers up in the scorching hot sun, come back all the way, sit for a while, they're tired, they're hungry, they can't eat because there's no food in the house. They've got to do the trek again, all the way to the pond and back again. Now, what is this water? It's dirty, filthy, contaminated water. What meager resources that they have, they spend on healthcare and not on that 1 meal a day, which is all they can afford. So now, what is true to Zubaydah and Suleika is true to a lot of women in many parts of the world. This topic today for the second panel discussion is something really fascinating. World, women, water. Very powerful, very, very a need of the hour caption for this panel discussion. And who better to lead it than Mary? There's something very, what should I say, captivating about Mary. She is an expert, a leader. She's the co-executive director of Global Waterworks. What is really intriguing is that she grew up on Water Street. She grew up on Water Street in Watertown in Wisconsin. How much better does it get? When she was only 10 years old when she gave her first talk on water. So after spending 30 years in the industry, in many financial and of course the technological markets, she came back to what she started with, where she grew and her basic founding in life. In 2015, she started Global Waterworks, and Global Waterworks is a phenomenal runaway success, a tremendous worldwide body which connects professionals, solution seekers, solution providers, and has been in the space for so long doing great work. Thank you very much, Mary, for accepting and be humble to say that what in a little group which started just a few months ago, you partnering us, allowing us to use your space and being a part of this program today. Thank you very much for being here with us. I'm going to hand the stage over to Mary to introduce the rest of the panelists and continue this conversation. Thank you.
Oh, Ajit, what a beautiful and warm welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you all and to see such a large group of future Rotarians, actually existing Rotaract members and people engaged already in water. I have the pleasure of being with you for the last hour and hearing the perspectives. And I am just very excited for what you're going to hear in the next hour as we turn to the women of water who have been navigating for 30 years, working to change some of the issues that you all raised. And Hari, I am just calling out, Mansi says she's having difficulty logging in. I'm wondering if you could reach out to her. So I just, that popped up on my screen. But what we have here before us is three excellent women who bring together a diverse range of experiences. I will introduce them briefly, but we're going to put their information in the chat so you can also better understand them. What Dr. Mansi Belbergava, actually, I will hold off on introducing her until she is fully on and go to Durga Das, who you have been hearing from because she is a Rotarian and she has been hosting this whole event. And I'm thrilled to have her with us because she brings experience where I have been in Silicon Valley in California, 25 years of being an innovator, and most recently in the water space, and has had a series of entrepreneurial ventures that have allowed for her to succeed again and again and to be a mentor to many people. But she recently acquired the rights and technologies of patented solutions to launch a water solution company called Aero Nero, which is atmospheric water, very relevant to India. And it's actually been in use in India for 10 years, but now is becoming very exciting to the rest of the world as we have water quality challenges that are addressed by atmospheric water. But Durga didn't stop there. She also saw the need to address the other part of the water sector and has another company that she'll be able to tell us about addressing the wastewater reuse and treatment of rainwater, which is so important, particularly there in Chennai. And Durga has an interesting background as well, coaching talent with the Economic Forum. And she has more than 30 years of experience with critical early stage startups, having overseen the successful acquisition of all of her startups. How amazing is that? So if you want to mentor, partner with Durga because she'll get you through that critical commercialization portion. And she is skilled in all of these aspects of management and marketing for organizations and also the sales, which is typically the tripping point for many startups getting out of the gate. But I'm fascinated too to share that she's captained the cricket team of the US. She's a semi-pro golfer or amateur golfer, and also rides a Harley Fat Bob on weekends. So quite a woman, both on the business side, but also if you want to go for a sail or do something on the weekends, seems to be the person to hang out with. So Durga, a pleasure to have you here. I look forward to hearing your comments momentarily. And thank you for setting up this whole meeting. And I am thrilled to have with me one of the women water warriors who's been part of our Global Waterworks journey almost from the start, Gigi Karmas-Edwards. She's the founder of Karmas-Edwards Consulting, and she has worked heavily in research, but understands all aspects of the water cycle and has her own home garden and vermiculture effort going on in her backyard to make sure she uses all of the resources that she talks about. But Gigi has been instrumental here and internationally in advancing the water sector's knowledge of digital technologies and understands the aspects of digital utilities, how that helps with automation, optimization, but she partnered with the Smart Water Networks Forum, an organization that does offer youth entry points so that anyone can join and become familiar with digital technologies applied to water. And she actually will lead the workshop for that organization in May where people will better understand how to create a digital twin model for utilities. And that is with the swan-forum.com. And Gigi is just chemical engineering background, electrical engineering background, just one of those excellent STEM examples for you women who are pursuing careers in water, and fun to be with. I've traveled with her at conferences, always up for visiting and learning more about people's experiences. So you will enjoy Gigi. And I'm hoping that that Dr. Mansi has been able to sign on at this time. Do you see her there, Durga?
Yes, Maria.
Yes, she's here.
You got to turn on the gallery.
Wonderful.
I'm here.
Oh,
thank you.
Perfect. So Dr. Mansi Balbhagarva, pleasure to have you with us. I had the distinct pleasure last week of sitting in on one of your sessions for International Women's Day and was just captivated by what you shared. Over your 25 years of experience in the water sector, as you'll see, she's an entrepreneur, a researcher, educator, speaker, mentor. All aspects of coaching and developing other people is what is clearly her focus. And she has her Wednesdays for Water backdrop there. Exciting movement out of Bangalore, but I believe it's also virtual, right? Yeah, and they have really started to move things forward with exciting cultural activities, as well as just regular commitments to conversation, which is so important in this world. And women in water, everyone who's out there who's wondering about your place in water, Mansi has collected a set of brochures that show all these men panels. And so anytime you're wanting a speaking engagement, you can just pull out her brochures and say, hey, you guys need more women speaking. And she's fun, responsive. I think she works 24/7, but she also covers the whole globe and has on her personal site a tour you can take of the water sector across all of the different cities she's visited and impacted through her teaching and training. And she is a dedicated Fulbright scholar. She's been awarded so many different accolades because of her commitment and the impact that she's having. And the story that she shared about engaging citizens in lake restoration last week was just a wonderful example, which we will post in our Global Waterworks community. And we'll post some of this in the chat as we start out our conversation. What I want to do is have the women each share reflections on their past and their perspectives on what's needed in the water sector, and then an action and a benefit that we can all take to advance the water sector out of this call. So all of you will have the chance to listen in and make commitments at the end. But what I'm going to do is have 3 sets of questions that the women will go through. First, reflecting on how they got into the sector and their current roles, and then what are the needs and the gaps in the sector, and then finally, what action can we take to catapult water forward? And so, what I'll do is because of the flow of their expertise, with Mansi working in the environment and Durga working in the environment and technology, and Gigi in technology, I will have them take that flow through all questions except for the last one, where we'll start with Gigi. So Mansi, what prompted you to choose water as your life's work? And if you could share a little bit of your story and how you got involved and your current focus, that would be super. And then Durga and Gigi, if you could follow her.
Thank you, Mary, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all of you, wherever you are in the world. Love from Ahmedabad, the city of Gandhi. I have to find a day when I started with water. I will be very honest on that. But from my bachelor's till PhD, it has all been waters, So I'm trying to keep my feet wet. But at the same time, I must say that the flood is equally a problem, So I am water diseased. So I can say that at this moment. And I think the journey starts more from this childhood nostalgia of living in the rural setup of West Bengal, where both my grandparents had their own ponds, And now when I come to my city here in Ahmedabad, after graduation, I also found ponds everywhere, more than 600 ponds in my city where I lived. So it was a natural, inclination to keep working on there. But having said that, it wasn't easy. Coming from architecture background and talking about ecology was not appreciated. And still in architecture, I must say that water is not taught to the extent it should be. And that kind of became my mission, that because built environment is infecting the water system much more than anything else. And I felt that there is a gap where I can really start working on. And right from early career as a youngster, what do you look for? You know, very honestly, when you have some ideas, it is received, it is acknowledged, appreciated. As a young girl, you find that, oh, there is a career path there, you know. So honestly, it was not job opportunities. It was not, I still have difficulty finding work for myself because of my radical thinking, and you will see along the course of discussion. But I think the need in the society to talk about water. For water conservation, we need conversation. And I think I got it very much in my head that we need to talk about water. So I'm completely soaked in it right now. So I will stop here. Thank you.
It's beautiful. And Durga, over to you.
Thank you, Mary, and pleasure to meet both Mansi and Gigi at this panel session. I don't have the experience or the expertise that you all do have, but I have the passion. I'm sure I can match on the passion level. My experience and my walk into water kind of happened because there was this insane burning desire for me to do something that created social impact before I leave Earth. And I started my career, my journey when I was 13 or 14 years old as an entrepreneur because circumstances kind of forced me to doing something. And because I played cricket, I started a sports shop. That's where I started. And then that just kept building on. And I spent 25 years in the Valley building and selling technology. Not that I was a technologist, but I just learned to manage people well. And I learned to look for ideas, and ideas, especially when you have an open mind and not too much of an education like I didn't. You can do anything, you can imagine anything because there are no constraints to imagination. And it was not taxed and it was free. So I let my imagination run wild and free, and I looked for ideas wherever I could because there was a goal, and the goal in front of me was to first survive and look after my family and then the community around me. But 25 years of doing that kind of seeped into me, and I kind of got bored. I felt making money was not the ultimate goal, and there's only that much one needs in life. And I wanted to do something that would make a difference in my life before I died. And I know it sounds ominous, but I started looking at death as something that I should look forward to and expect. And I decided that the time between here and that time is very short, and very short if you really want to create something of social impact. And the areas that attracted me were water and energy. And maybe so because I came from India, and these were two critical problems. There are many parts of India that we still don't have electricity, and I don't believe they will have for the next 20 years. And water has just become a problem over the years. We have had so many rivers in India. The Ganges flows in India, but we're running out of water. And we ran out of water in, I was playing a tournament in Cape Town, South Africa, and we ran out of water. Then Chennai ran out of water, and then California runs out of water. And then I started saying, C, I gotta be seeing something here, right? Cape Town, California, and Chennai. So it became obvious to me that I had to look at water. While I was in California about 20 years ago, there was a company that was taking the first steps into air water generation. It was very, very early, very premature. And nobody really wanted to. And we heard in the first panel, everyone thinks it's a right to have free water. The government has to provide, I pay taxes, so I should get it free. So there was not too much, acceptance to air water generation at that time. There were people who did use our solution, but then we couldn't really sustain it as a business, so it died. And when this happened in South Africa and then California and Chennai, I started Aeronero, and I said, this is what I want to do. But I want to do it in a way that it's not about just making money. Of course, we need to earn money to be able to survive and to take this forward, but we have to do it in a way that it actually focuses on social impact. So can we bring it down to a price that is best possible for it to be in the hands of every single person? Can we do it in a way where CSR contributes to communities that cannot afford? And so that became the hallmark of the company. So we are a for-profit social enterprise. And that's how, I came into the world of water. And now I'm consumed by passion, and I'm learning everything I can about it and trying to connect to as many people I can. And that's all I have for now, Mary.
Wow. Well, I told everyone you guys would be excited to hear from these women, and here Dr. Mansi starts it off with her upbringing, and Durga continues with just committed passion and identifying the needs of the world as you roam around and take action is just such an inspiration for the rest of us. So thank you both for kicking us off. And Gigi, I know you have a similar story, but I invite you to chime in here. Eager to hear it.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here with Dr. Manisa and Durga. This is just, it's amazing to hear both of your stories. My story was a little bit different. I started off in the data communications world, and I was responsible for writing software, developing hardware to manage and control global data communications. I was working in academia for 10 years doing research on something called grid computing. And then I started reading about Syria and the war that started in Syria. And I read a New York Times article that talked about the beginnings of that was really the drought condition in Syria. And many of the farmers could no longer survive on their farming and the output from their farms because of the drought. So they started moving into the cities. And when they started moving into cities, they overwhelmed the city infrastructure for the water infrastructure. And that is the beginning of where people started to have unrest, and wars actually began because of water crisis. And as I was reading that, I was like, oh my goodness, how are we not taking such good care of the most precious resource on this planet? And are there ways that I could apply things that I've learned and done in my career with software, technology to water so that we can run it more efficient and take better care of our water resource? And so really that's how I decided to get into the water sector. I remember my very first interview with a company called Census. It's a very large metering company here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I live. And I told them I have no experience in water. I drink water, I swim in water, I love water, and I am dedicated to work in water. And somehow through luck, I was able to get this director of technology position. And I started learning quite quickly about what is it that we're, how can we take data that we're collecting from our water system and use that to better understand what's happening with the entire water cycle, from the source into, do we need to treat it, into the distribution to all the houses and businesses, and then what happens in the wastewater, and then how does that circle back around and get right back into our drinking water. And so I've been very fascinated with using technology and really getting a better understanding of what our systems are doing with this water resource, and asking the questions: what is wrong? What do we need to learn? What do we need? What's missing from our equation of what's really happening with water? And as you start to ask those questions, you start to look, are there technologies that could help simplify this? Are there technologies that can give us some of these answers so that then we can take the proper action to conserve our water? And to me, that is really the concepts behind digital water. And, if you take that all the way to the maximum extent, you come up with something called the digital twin, which has been around for many, many years. And it's really creating a digital representation of a physical system in the digital realm so that you can understand what's really happening remotely with our system. And through that, you can then start to manage and control it so that you can have the maximum efficiency of the systems that we have been building to take care of our water. So that kind of gives you an idea of how I got started. It was really about reading that New York Times article on the water crisis and how that's going to be what starts our wars in the future and in the present. So So anyway, I'm very, very passionate about water. I will do whatever I can for, bringing people together globally and trying to understand how technology can help us with our water systems.
Yes, excellent. And so nice always to have you on the other side of the Zoom, Gigi, with your bright smile. So appreciate that. And Gigi has also worked very closely with MIT and other organizations to advance education in water and curricula. So as an expert there as well. And I really appreciate everyone's responses as we look ahead. Each of you referenced the issues with conflict, water being the most valuable resource, that, diligently working to steward it, understanding lives are at stake. It's not just a simple convenience, but in fact, each one of us requires it every single day. And a report put out by McKinsey and the World Bank suggests that in 2030, we will have a 40% gap between the supply and demand of water. That means between the 5 of us here, only 3 of us would have a glass of water to drink. Pretty extreme, projections, but we all see it happening in different places. And even in Chennai, where this is hosted, we know you are facing a day zero where you would not have water, and turn that around out of because of your diversified water resources. I'm wondering if the panel could each speak to what they view as where we are at in 2030. And perhaps you could say, if we do nothing, this is where we are at. Or you could say, if we do something, this is where we're at. And the gap you see as most essential for our world to address in order to get to a better place by 2030. So Dr. Mansi, I'll go back to you.
Thank you, Mary. A very burning question for all of us. More so because I'm just putting my views here because it's personally not the right question. So again, a black sheep approach, which is there from me. I feel water crisis is a manufactured and manipulated problem by the educated elites where we are living, where we are sitting together and talking. So I am blaming ourselves. So when we say that 40% gap will be there between demand and supply, actually we will not be affected. The educated elites who have good money to buy water. So those who are affected now, they will be affected more by 2030 because we are not changing our behavior. We are really not bringing that cultural change, and we are too much reliant on the STEM, on the technology, on the management, on the engineering side of it. So I see this is where we are going to increase the gap. And I want to bring notice to everybody, the Sustainable Development Goal 12. The Sustainable Development Goal 12 talks about responsible consumption and production. And mind you, poor people are way too more responsibly consuming and producing waste than the educated elites are. So somewhere our misuse of water is getting impacted to the people who are actually not even getting enough water at this point. So I don't see that we are going to get affected. So unfortunately, water is already dividing the society. We are dividing the society between ourselves. And it's a limited resource. If you have a glass of water, and if educated elites keep taking the 70 to 80% of the water, and we keep saying that we have to provide to the poor, somewhere we are hiding behind the reality. So I did write an article in January, which got published in Water Digest in India. It's a very popular magazine. And I said that we have to reframe our question and not talk about providing water to the poor, but start talking about why the rich and educated elites are consuming more. Let us question that. Because if we consume less, there is automatically more water to them. And I bring an example of Chennai here. We say there is a water crisis, 0 day in Chennai. Where are these tankers getting water from? Who is helping them get water? If tankers can get water, which means there is water. So Chennai's water problem is again a nexus, or I will say a Hindi word we have is as a mafia system of selling water, of making water a capital, a capital good for to be marketed. And I think this is where we are culturally going wrong in water management. Water cannot be put in that zone of, I mean, it is getting pushed there. And again, it is being pushed by the educated elites. And I use this word very often with an underline and bold all the time, because we are the ones who are taking decisions and taking actions. So if water tankers can get water, government can also get water, which means there is water in the groundwater. It's only that because there are people, powerful people who have bigger machines, they can go deeper. So it's not really solving the problem by tankers. But if we are spending so much money on water management, are we spending enough on social management? Water management is people management. Water does not require us to be managed. We require ourselves to be managed better. So if we can really do better waste management, wastewater management, water will rejuvenate itself. So I think we have to really rephrase the way we look at the problem. We have to be ethically right. So science without conscience by the people who do science is taking us in the wrong direction, and we are hiding behind by saying that we are trying to serve the poor. And I'm putting myself into that as well. I'm equally guilty of it. I feel guilty every day about it. And we have to change our outlook towards water. We are not obliging the poor by giving them water. We have to reduce our consumption. Thank you.
Yes, well, and I know you have a vision for that I hope you'll share in the next question. And it gives everyone responsibility for water where it's at. So love it, Mansi, and keep being that contrarian. We need to keep thinking. So Durga, over to you. Where do you see us in 2030, and what do you see as the biggest gap that we need to address?
Mary, you actually expect me to give an answer after listening to Dr. Mansi. I had some thoughts, and I'm quickly thinking my thoughts now, saying, wait a minute.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's just that
she can stand on her own.
You invoke a completely different line of thinking in my mind while I was listening to you speak. So I think I kind of came to a place where I found a balance between what I think and what I agree with you on. And so I'll share that. I agree with you that responsible consumption by the so-called elite will automatically leave water for those who we call poor and who have no access to water. Absolutely. That's so true. But it doesn't change the fact that if we continue to consume the way we are consuming, that day zero is going to be day zero. Right? It is going to be day zero for some part of the population, some part of the world. So it's not the question of there is no day zero. We're hiding behind the fact that there is water, but there is no water for many. And that water is not there for many because others have used it. So I agree with you. And I also think that day zero is still a very imminent possibility. And I also agree that the way we use and consume and judiciously manage water is the path to that management of that crisis situation. The other aspect of this is, I always thought when I was living in California, thinking I want to be in water, my first thought was I have to go to India. India has a water problem. I was shocked and amazed to realize that the entire world has a water problem. Cape Town ran out of water. I was in California in December. They can't water their gardens. There's no water for the pool. Okay, I know it's still an elite statement, but having said that, when I first went there in the early 90s, I was drinking water from the tap. It's no longer the case. You can't drink water from the tap. If there's water at all, it's very hard water. It has to be purified. It has to be filtered. The hardness has to be removed before you can drink. I went on to Belgium, where I thought maybe this is where I should set up my company, somewhere in Europe where they understand sustainability and will appreciate what I'm trying to do. And they buy plastic bottles of water for drinking in their kitchen, for cooking. And I said, don't you guys use water from the tap? And they said, no, we don't. We all buy water. Long Island, they said, Durga, we have run out of water. Our water is contaminated. Long Island, New York. We need water. We all buy plastic bottles. And they buy crates of it. They all go to Costco and buy in bulk. And it's not just about buying water in bulk. Just imagine the amount of plastic that they're going to throw next. right? And then that's going to take millions of years to solve. So is this a third world country problem? This is a world problem. This is not a third world problem. And so I don't think we should feel sorry that Indians will have a problem because I'm an Indian, I think I should serve India. But no, I started looking very differently in the last 6 months, deciding that I have to serve the world. It's not just an India story. And this water problem exists everywhere, and it's only going to become worse by the day. Because the problem that you mentioned, Dr. Mansi, that the elite are the ones who are not applying themselves to saying, well, if I can afford to do better, if I can afford to judiciously manage my water, if I can afford to look for alternate sources of water, which are probably expensive for the poorer communities, then I'm leaving that much more water behind. If I put in systems for reuse of gray water that I am using and wasting, and I justify to my mind that, no, I use it for my gardening. Well, your garden doesn't need that much water. Just don't make it up saying that I don't waste water, I use it for my garden. Your garden is going to say, stop, I don't need your dirty water anymore, right? But that's how we justify the malpractices that we inculcate in our own lives. And so I think if the so-called elite, the so-called well-to-do, the so-called middle class and above look at how we can manage water better, how we can preserve water, reuse our water, and not think about, just because I can afford it, let me just get fresh water every day. We will leave that much more water behind, which then leads me back to saying, I agree with you. It is not a water problem. It is about a water management problem. And, that's where I completely am on the same platform as you. So one of the things I started looking at is when I built Aeronero, saying I'll build an alternate source of water. And people said, well, why would I need that when I'm supposed to get water from my tap? I said, you can afford to buy a machine that's less than $600, $700. Come on. If you can do this, you're going to leave behind 600 liters of water for a family that can't afford to do this. So why don't you go to an alternate source and allow them to take it from the ground? Because if you all start digging it up from the ground, which is going down day by day, because there's overconsumption, because of overpopulation, bad management, and there's only that much water that we always had. There is no, like I heard in the other panel, and I agree, there is no additional water on our Earth's surface, nor are we losing it. It's all kind of moving in different places. It's going from the sea to the air, to the taps, to the bottles, to the sewage, and back to the sea. It's all always the same. The water balance on the planet Earth is always the same. It's just in different places at different times. So if we can choose to not take from the ground and look at alternate sources, we will leave behind for others. And that led me to the next problem. When I said, can you use water besides drinking, for other uses? Then people said, Durga, spending 2 cents a liter of water on, my kitchen, my dishwasher or my laundry is expensive because I'm used to getting it free and 2 cents is too much. And I said, okay, well, if 2 cents is too much for a liter of water, then what can I do about it? And that's when I created the next company that I had called Cleanse, which I said, well, I'll give you water from air, then I'll treat your gray water and give it right back to you. So then you're completely in a sustainable cycle. And so if you can afford to do this, we can leave that much more water for those who can't afford to. So I believe that day zero is imminent if we do not change our attitude to water management. If we do not change our attitude to that, I can afford and I don't really care about anyone else. I can choose to say I'm a good person by going to a place of God and looking at a poor person and doing charity. But if you can't do charity the right way, then I think you're harming someone and you're not really helping them. So I truly think that there are solutions out there. There are women warriors like you who, need to speak out the way you do. I'll be right behind you holding your flag, no problem. And I think we can truly, truly make a difference. And like I said, all over the world, it's just not here in India. And that's what I have to say on the subject.
Excellent. Oh my goodness.
Excellent. Well, yes. You take it away, Gigi.
Yeah, no, I love what both of you have said. It's very inspiring for sure. And I agree with everything you both said. And I think it is a water management problem, but I do think, a lot of times we in the water sector are looking to other people in the water sector to help solve this problem. But really, I think it's like a threefold. It's water, food, and energy. And if across these industries, we can really collaborate. Mary had mentioned that I consider myself an urban farmer, although my kids will not say that. But I have fruit trees and I grow a lot of my own food and herbs and vegetables throughout the year. And one of the things that Mary mentioned is I also have a vermiculture. So I raise worms so that they could eat a lot of my kitchen scraps, and I can take their poop and put it in my garden soil. And that's the way nature has, you know, allowed this cycle of life, you know, that everything is taken care of through the microorganisms. And if I always feel like at some point we went the wrong way when we started talking about wastewater and how we use other chemicals to clean the wastewater, and then get to the point where, yes, we kill all the microorganisms that are natural in wastewater, and we, you know, sell fertilizers so that then, you know, like nitrogen, phosphorus, and what's the other one? Phosphorus and potassium. And we sell that and people put it in their garden. But I feel like our whole food production system is a little bit it's very much going in the wrong direction. By fertilizing our soil, we don't really create soil. We create this little dirt layer where we're artificially feeding our plants. And so our plants don't have the right root system. So somehow or another, I'd love to figure out, and I think Durga, some of your products may be doing some of this, but I'd love if we in the global sector, not think about water, solving water problem, but water and the food industry and the energy, because 70% of the, you know, effort that we put forth in cleaning water is very energy intensive. So the majority of the cost for water treatment is in energy. So if there is a way that we can go back to nature and understand how nature intended waste to work in the soil, and if we do it properly in the soil so it doesn't cause any disease, we then start to change the way we farm and how farmers, you know, like if you have microorganisms and a very lively soil, you actually use a lot less water. I never water my plants and I get lots of vegetables and lots of fruits. And I just, you know, depend on the rain. It's because the soil is so concentrated with life. It's real soil. I never give it even organic fertilizers. You don't need to do that. The system between the fungi and the microorganism, they take care of itself. So somehow or another, I would love for the water sector and the food sector to come together and rethink the wastewater. And I have a feeling that addresses some of the things that Dr. Meniz and Durga has talked about. You know, we're not managing it properly. Yes, we should rethink how much we use, but we should also maybe rethink how we handle wastewater. Is this a 19th century way of doing things or 20th century? Is there a way that we can use the natural system to help us with treating water for the purposes of use? So that's just another thought process to add on to what everyone else.
Well, totally unexpected from the digital person to go back to the food, energy, and water, but it's a great reminder. Yes, and then measure it. What's interesting is Dr. Mansi shared the need to understand demand management and the use by different groups. And her approach would probably benefit most from the digital monitoring of usage. So I appreciate you ladies reiterating that it's not so much a water problem we have, it's both a transportation problem. We don't have water where we need it, or we don't have the quality, as Durga said, where we need it, or we're not taking advantage of the environment and nature's natural purification method for handling water and ensuring that we have resilience with the amount of water needed. So our final question, and I'd invite everyone in the audience, if you have questions, let us know. If we don't get to them, we will follow up, but I'll put them in the chat. And I'm asking the women to be fairly brief in this final period where limited to 2 minutes if you could. What action and what benefit would you, recommend we all take, keeping in mind that this is the next generation primarily that's listening, so they can carry forward all of your great ideas here? And then how might this impact our trajectory? And if you care to say the opportunity you see for them as Rotarians, that would be great. And Gigi, if we could start with you and go in reverse order, that would be great.
Okay. So yes, again, I do believe, like I said before, that we need to think cross sectors. We need water and energy and food to work together to start to solve some of the problem. I do think we have an opportunity just with technology again. If you look at a lot of people have phones, even some of, third world countries, they sort of leapfrog the whole data infrastructure and data communications infrastructure by going to cellular. There is just so much. If we can ask the questions, what's missing? What information do we need in order to solve whatever problem it is? At times, you can start to think that there could be an app that's generated that can allow people to communicate. Just like Dr. Manise, you actually mentioned something about, if I remember it correctly, where you can figure out where the water is so that someone can deliver the water, or someone said this, can deliver the water to you because you know where those tankers are. So I do believe that there is a way to use technology. The sensors now are becoming very inexpensive, and with wireless technologies, we can start to gain knowledge, just any piece of knowledge that fits into the puzzle to allow us to understand where water is, how do we access water, who do we communicate with when there is a problem with water. I do believe that we can take advantage of technology and help answer the questions that we're all asking to solve some of these big, water problem questions. So anyway, that's really something that I believe strongly in, and I think collectively we can come together and figure out inexpensive technologies that help answer the questions that we all have.
Excellent approach. And Durga, to you.
So I think of this as a multi-pronged approach. We have to look at it holistically from many angles. The first angle is creating awareness, right? Making people understand that they can contribute to saving water, no matter whether you have access to a lot of it or some of it or none of it. How do you manage your own water is something very important, and that only comes by educating and awareness. And I think this has to be done with such an aggressive attitude that we have to proliferate all communities, villages, residential complexes, wherever you go. Wherever I go, my only conversation is about water, to the extent that I've lost all my friends because they know that I only talk water, right? So but if we are not that aggressive about it, and we don't find like-minded people who are equally aggressive about it, we're not going to get the message across. So awareness is very important. The second is, no matter what we say about taking citizen action, I think it's important to work with the government, because after all, they are people who can, create change across a mass of people. While we take singular steps, they can make sure that people can come together and follow conditions and laws by setting down certain systems. For example, when I was trying to pitch our solution as AWG, I went to the same Jal Shakti Mantralaya and I requested whether they could bring the tax on it from 18% to 5%, because we could get more people to buy a system that would give them water from air and leaving water for those who don't have access to it. Right. I talked to them about California, where the government gave tax rebates by putting solar panels on your homes. So if you can give that and get the initial group of people to look at an alternate source, then again, we have water. So I think it's important to engage and work with government, not necessarily in policy change, but just to take the message across to see, how can you help me help you help someone else? It's got to kind of come together. And so it's important to work with government. The third is, of course, technology. And in technology, many aspects of technology, data collection. In all our systems, we are putting IoT to collect data on where, how much water is there, how much water was consumed, how much water was reused, what was the quality of water. And I think collection of that data will help the individual consumer. It will help in the government understanding where the problems are and to mitigate those, in a timely manner. So collecting data through systems like, using IoT and the sensors that you talked about, Gigi, are very important. Alternate sources of water, like the air water generators, which are now becoming very, very accepted all over the world. I think this is the future. Every kitchen will have a refrigerator, every kitchen will have a burner, and every kitchen will have a water generator. It's just going to be the norm. And I think so technology has to play that part as well. And last but not least, the reuse of gray water, I think, is a critical aspect, because no amount of water we make or get from any other source, we only drink that much water or use so much for cooking. Most of the water, 90% of the water we consume is used for other reasons, and then just wasted, and of course, like I said, for gardening. This is not the answer. We need to reuse that water, not once, but multiple times before we finally let it out. So I think reuse of water and technologies that play a part in that will also add a lot of value. So it has to be a holistic approach, engaging different parts of the community. And that's one of the things that I love about what we're doing in the Rotary. We're actually pulling together all of those different kinds of approaches, working with, the world of water that Mary and Frank drive. We are talking and working with Rain Center. We're working with, what was the other one? Shakers Rain Center. We're talking to Drop Dead, which is a simple solution of just making sure there are no leaky faucets. So that saves a lot of water. So partnering with like-minded, programs and platforms like the one that Mary runs, I think, are very, very critical. And that's what the Water Mission is also doing. So I think Rotary is taking a great step forward. It would be nice to continue to collaborate and find holistic answers.
Yes, excellent point. And it's beautiful to see the watermission.in, which I'll put in the chat here. And I'll also add our Global Waterworks collaboration, because we are here simply to network and to connect with all of you experts. As Dr. Mansi said, she resonates with you, Durga, and I think, Gigi, we all know that there's only so much appetite people have for water conversations, and we appreciate the audience here diving in. But Dr. Mansi, you have the final word here on what should we do to manage this situation, and what can all the audience take action on?
Thank you for even saying that it is a valedictory, but I assume I will hand it over to you after I say. I will start with a line which is very important, and I've already put it in the chat box, that first and foremost, we need to realize that water in the body is same as you have in you, Mary, and all the panelists here and all the participants here. And it's the same water which is outside in the drain, which is dirty in India, or beautiful swale in other parts of the world, and in the ocean. So if we realize it, we at least are more empathic to water. And I think the second point I would like to bring here is conversation is very important to conservation. We are not and Durga already mentioned, I have also lost some friends, but I have gained many more water friends than others. But we have to make friends with those who do not like water talk. So that's why conversation is required. So that's an important part which we have to work on. And strategically working and bringing it from Gandhi, I will say that we have to work at two levels. Be the change you want to see in the world. So first thing first, as water leaders, we have to chart the path and show that it is possible. So a minimalistic living is very, very important. It's from recycling, reusing, and to everything what we buy in our everyday life, including flats, costumes, cars. It all should reflect in the way that I have been water sensitive, including all other activities which we do in everyday life. So as an individual, we have to bring a change and show to the people that it is possible. And I'm sure we are, many of us are here, we are trying to not only preach, but also practice to see how difficult it is. And you find out that it is really not that difficult. It is extremely easy to live a very simple, minimalistic life. And Durga was already mentioning that one has to go past that doing anything for earning is much more needed to really doing something for a social impact. So that's important. So coming to the social impact side of it, the institutional strategy we have to work in the water sector, And I will focus only in India here. And I will say that there is a lot of money in water sector. There is no denial on that. But people like me, when we go to get some grants and all, there is no money. So we have to rethink the way the funds for water works are allocated. So if for younger generation, please know, you may have to spend most of the time undoing the wrong things which my generation and my senior generations have done, right from making dams to canals to many of the modern things which we are doing to manage water. I will reinforce the point that water does not require our management. We have to spend most of the funds of water management into people management. So if water could speak, it will just speak one line to humans. Humans, if you cannot manage me, the least you can do is not damage me. So that brings to the point that let us work on not polluting the environment. Let us not work on the water. Let us reduce our pollution production. And that is only going to happen if we really look at the way institutional grants are put. You go for institutional grants and funds on water management, most of the money is on building those concrete, steel, and all those kind of things. Hardly 5 to 6% money is allocated for vegetation or for ecology and for social impact, social awareness program. My take after researching for nearly 30 years will be 50% money on any water project should be spent on social mobilization or social awareness programs. Because unless and until we are changing society towards the use of water, we are really heading nowhere in changing technology or doing any kind of management. So that brings me to the last point, which I want to say, especially to the younger generation. Please remember, environment requires not doing much. Doing too much is the biggest problem at this moment. Because we are so educated, we want to do a lot. And unfortunately, doing a lot is creating the problem. And trust me, not doing is also doing. Just like darkness is also light, not doing is also doing. So to maintain an ecosystem at its status quo also requires money, which is not there in water projects. So if there is a little forest or a lake, so it is about people's perception. We think it is wilder, it is dirty. We should change our perception, and we see that we have to maintain it in that order. And I often use a very joking example, and that can be a good example to end my point here. We don't marry every day. We marry only one day and maintain that marriage for until we can. Similarly, if a water body is done something, it's done for one time. You have to just maintain it. Younger generation has to spend time not in any water development, but maintenance of the water ecosystem. Not doing is future. Undoing the wrongdoing which we have done is also the future. So that is called degrowth and de-development. I invite all of you for a conversation on degrowth and de-development. We are not heading anywhere in development with 1.5 times the planet's resource consumed. So please look at those ideas. They are futuristic ideas, but it is already happening at many parts of the world and in India as well. So thank you so much, Mary. And thanks, Durga and Gigi.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, what a pleasure to hear. And I'll just sum up what you all shared in the end were typical of where you're focused right now, with Gigi saying we can measure what we can manage. So let's get sensors across all of these things and keep track of what we're doing, with Durga looking at the holistic system as she's launching enterprises and saying it's about awareness, but also about policies, and then technology and this diversified water management that we can bring in. And Dr. Mansi then reiterated the need for engagement of citizens to take action and to rethink water. Very, very important to there was a catchphrase you had. I meant to write it down. Mansi, could you reiterate what it was? It was not doing is doing, but it was you started your comments with it.
So undoing is very important because we are doing wrong, but not doing is also doing. Just like darkness is also kind of light.
Yes.
So we have to accept that part. So actually, ecosystem does not require us to do a lot. It requires us to do on ourselves, not on the ecosystem. That's what I meant. Thank you.
Amen. So beautiful. And I have just really enjoyed listening in, learning from each of you. I'm aware we're almost at time. And Hari or Ajit, if you had a comment, I wanted to invite you in to add to this, because I don't see questions in the chat. Let me see.
I do see one question: salt water to drinking water or water for agriculture for the lands at Trankibar and Puriyar, Tamil Nadu? Question mark from Senthil Ramalingam. If somebody would like to take that question.
We actually just held a program on that with Solar Still.
Mary, can I take that question?
Yes, go ahead, Hari.
All right. I'll put it this way to Senthil, who's asked this question. Saltwater drinking water is a luxury India does not need. All of these people are telling you that. And if the governments try and promote those things, it is only because they want to grab these projects which have huge public expenditure, right? As citizens, as users, you have to see how you can demonstrate. There is supposed to be public consulting before they spend monies of this kind. The other is this: for agriculture, for the land. You're talking about Tranquebar. You know Tranquebar is really 3,000 years old. The Dutch came there, I think, first, even before the British did. What is the Tamil name for Tranquebar? I forget. Tiruvambadi or something like that. All right. Now, Senthil, I'll only say my last sentence on this is this. Agriculture, like some of the speakers in the first session said, needs smart watershed management. Without water being imported from the outside, without groundwater being exploited, and without pesticides and fertilizers, what I call non-pesticide managed foods. There are many examples in many districts across the country. India has to move toward a true green revolution, not the 1967 variety, which brought, the misery that we all have of poisoned soils in India. Soil is the only asset of a nation. We forget that, Senthil. That's all I will say. Over to you, Mary. Oh, you're muted. Yeah,
You're unmute yourself, Mary.
Yep, got it. Excellent comment. And I just want to reiterate to everyone, there are a bunch of links in the chat of organizations you can join to take action. We suggested everyone could do so at the end of today. And I just want to thank Durga and Rotary. I think the call to action I would have is that Rotary would, just as it solved polio, would say water is the new focus, and that we would all corral together and ensure everyone has a glass to drink and has the resources well managed and efficient, and follows the leadership of you women today.
Mary, will you want one of the other men here, Kent, to have a word edgewise, since so many
that would be here? Wonderful. Ajit or
Kent. I meant Kent.
Kent. Oh, Kent. Yes, Kent. Swampy has a word on water.
Yeah. Kent, can you unmute and speak?
If you
I
might
haven't heard you
explain
either.
The engagement of students.
He's got to unmute. And Frank after that, Mary, probably, because he has got lots of things to say, I know.
How much to tell Kent to unmute?
Yes.
Ken Glades, you got to unmute. I think he's having some challenge.
It's not letting me.
Yeah, there you are. There you got it.
You go. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. This is Kent Glades Swampy. I'm speaking to you all from Louisville, Kentucky, U.S. And great hearing you all. Harry, I really want to connect with you guys because what you all said, education is where it's at. I created a character called Swampy. Swampy is a global focus character for clean water, wetlands protection, and Earth Day awareness. Swampy is also an acronym, and it stands for soils, which are brown, waters, which are blue, animals. I use the color red because there are lifeblood bioindicators, right? M is for many kinds, and it encompasses an entire assortment of topics. P is plants for green, and Y is yellow for our youth, which is our sunshine. So I like working with kids on the basics. They may be interested in water. K through 6 as they move up 7 through 12 towards college, trade school. Hey, if they love water, they might want to become a hydrologist, right? If they love soils, they could become a geologist, because we still need energy and to protect Mother Earth. And whether it's India or whether it's Kentucky or whether it's California or the Amazon, wherever, we have major global crises. Our planet consists, 97%, which is salt water. 2% of fresh water is held up in the glaciers. So it only gives us like a 1%. And of that, we need to clean for drinking water. So we are at a crisis. So it's about time, that we focus putting water on the same level as climate, because it's becoming so critical. But yeah, I've got a fun character. I try to do it fun with my little character, Swampy. For kids, I think if we instill in our kids the love for the outdoors, which I think they so urgently are pleading for, like Greta Thunberg, that's we change the entire generation. And not only just that, but like y'all saying, we really need to do this like in the Manhattan Project. This needs to be a global, worldwide come together, because it's not just waters even, it's endangered species, it's invasive species, it's oceans, in our plastic in our oceans, seawater rise, an array. Kentucky, we're known for mining. I regulated the coal industry in Kentucky for like almost 12 years. So I learned at the grassroots, the immensity. I love the science of these aspects, whether it's animals, zoology. So let's just talk about, again, education, bringing people together. Check out my link tree here, y'all. And I'm going to go over to Clubhouse and start another room.
Look at his passion, Kent. Mary, he needs a full hour, another time. Kent has got so much to tell us. We shall possibly ask him to. I mean, you have got a time constraint just now, so over to you. But Kent, I promise you this. You got to speak to a large audience. We will find you one somewhere in India, doesn't matter where. And like you said, education is really, really important. And I'm so overwhelmed by the fact that there are so many women. And I'm not talking about the panelists. Look at the participants list. It's fantastic. It's lovely.
I just want to express thank you real quick. My expression for India, I want to go there. I know there's so many different dialects, so much diversity that we don't see here in the States as in the West. And I just love the Indian people.
Right. And you can't go beyond one language. And here we are, every one of us speaking at least 5.
Exactly.
That's diversity for you to start with. Multiple you must come here. We will take you on a tour of our foods.
We'll love to do that.
Frank, anything from you?
Knowing we're up against time here, the huge benefit of this session is for everyone to see when someone is passionate about water, what an individual can do, what one person can do. And then it gets extrapolated across a region, a country, and across the globe. So that is so encouraging to hear everyone's work, passion, and your testimony. This has been a great session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Like Frank often says to all of you, I must say this. Frank keeps saying only one thing. I've heard this several times from him. He says, well, if each one of us can get one guy or maybe 5 guys every month, I'll push my bargain, to become part of what he calls the water community anywhere in the world, that will make a difference.
Well,
thank you so much, Hari. Thank you, Frank and Swampy, for adding in, Kent, for adding in those your own comments and enlightening us. All good things have to come to an end. We are now at 7:34, which is just about right, just a couple of minutes more than what we envisaged. It's a 3-month journey which brought us to where we are today. We started with Hydrothon, and today we have the World Water Day with such a fascinating and inspirational group of people.
And Ajit forgot to say that, he ran into all kinds of challenges before he got here over these 90 days.
Thank you, Hari. You bailed us out on a couple of occasions here.
It doesn't matter who did, but point is that, it's been an experience for Ajit.
Absolutely.
Daunting and humbling, I would say.
The 4 women who are on this panel, Mary, Mansi, Gigi, and Durga.
Gigi, yeah.
Absolutely inspirational. The conversation that we had today, it started with personal reflections, then moved on to perspectives, which was current practices and the gap that you see, which is most essential, and finally the action and benefit. There's so many takeaways. It's brilliant. Gratitude is the simplest form of saying thank you. And from the bottom of my heart, I must thank you for the time, the effort, energy that you have taken to be here with us. The youth are tomorrow's leaders. Today's audience is primarily the youth. And as you know, India is mostly a youth-centric audience. It's the Rotaract crowd which has been here today. We had over 230 people at one point in time. And look at this, 2.5 hours later, there are still 60 people sitting here, even though we've run out of time. And there's many more who are watching it on YouTube. Thank you, Rotaractors. You are going to take this forward. All this is a learning, it's an experience. We gain knowledge every time we listen to people. And today's program is not the end, it's just the beginning of this journey. The recording of today's conversation will be there up on our website, watermission.in. It will be spread out. It will be available on YouTube. Anybody who needs access, of course, we'll definitely send it out. All the very best. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been fantastic today.
Thank you all. Please take care. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. Real
Thank
pleasure.
you very much. Thank you. An honor.
Thank you. And maybe it must be 9 a.m. and a long day before you.